And we are up episode number 29, coming to you from North Alabama. This is the Our Town Podcast. I am your host, Troy By. In a moment, I will introduce our guest this week, a guest who I have been very anxious to have on the program. But as a reminder, this is now week 2. If you missed it in the episode with Ethan Woodruff from Now's, the zoo, I announced that we have a chapter feature now on YouTube. So this is long form. The episodes seem to get longer and longer, which is awesome. That's the whole point. But to help people kind of, if you can't listen to the whole episode at one time, we now have chapters. And so that's what YouTube calls it. You'll see that down in the timeline. It's very easy to navigate. You can hover over it. It'll tell you, in this case, like how much is the zoo going to cost? In the case of Ethan's episode tomorrow, today's September 28th. And tomorrow I will promote episode 28 with John Joseph IV of Decatur, Morgan County, the Entrepreneurial Center. And the same thing will apply there. Then if you're listening, the timeline is a narrative form in the show description. And as I'm going to switch over here, so you're going to see who our guest is, but I've added to the top of this screen, you can see all the audio platforms it's found on, and then the 2 video platforms are Spotify and YouTube. And so it's overwhelming trying to keep up with all the audio platforms. But I recently added iHeartRadio, Radio Public, and Amazon Music to the ones that we already are found on. And if you'll notice at the end of the audio strip, there's a logo that perhaps you might not be familiar with, and that is the Rocket City app, the Rocket City Cast. I interviewed Carl Holden of the Rocket City app, episode 18. And that's a local thing where they're trying to aggregate the podcasts that all the creators out there, including my show, so that you can easily find it. And it's really cool.
That's awesome.
So that awesome guy that just said those words, he's Rob Hamilton, and he's many things. We were kind of joking around as he came in here, but he wears many hats. He is the chair of Launch 2035. He is the vice president at Ignite. Ignite should be familiar with those who have watched episodes 15 and 16 back-to-back with CEO Clayton Hinchman.
Incredible leader.
And Dr. Joe Notre, who I've referenced many times.
My brother.
He is responsible for many of the guests we've had recently, and Rob is no exception to that. And you're also, let me just jump to this screen here as I introduce you. You're a board member of the National Children's Advocacy Center.
That is a hidden gem and jewel in North Alabama that has worldwide impact. I hope we get to talk about that today.
Oh, we will.
Yeah.
And you're also an external advisory board member at UAH/Adjunct Professor right now.
That's correct.
That's another thing that we will talk about. And as always, I try to, in this case, this is kind of a surprise to Rob, but I've got a little slideshow going of different pictures, and there's his headshot. So that's something, as we come to that screen, we'll rotate through them. I've got a few things saved up for him as well. But I would like to start with something a little more somber. Today is September 28th, 2022. On September 29th, 2009, Mark Forrester was killed in action in Afghanistan. Thad is his brother. Rob knows Thad well. Mark was a CCT, combat control technician for the United States Air Force. Rob is a graduate of the Air Force Academy, was in the Air Force, and knows Thad as well. The only person that I've had on this program that knows Thad better is Dr. Bo Rivera, who's from Haleville, Alabama, and was neighbors with the Forresters. So if you want to hear more about Mark's story, that's episode 5. Thad's a good friend of mine going back many, many years. And what I thought we could do, Rob, since you know Mark, you've received a coin, a Mark Forrester Foundation coin. I've received a coin from Thad. And I thought what we could do is do a moment of silence.
I think that's a great idea. And then I'd like to do what the Air Force does as well, but definitely the moment of silence. Let's do it.
All right. And I actually was off 1 year. He died in 2010, not 2009. Yeah. I think I had him confused with someone else.
To clarify, so
Sure.
So I didn't know Mark, but I got to know him and of him through Thad. And what's really cool is we teach his son, not Mark's son, but Thad's son in church. And so one day he pulled me aside and he said, "Hey, I heard you were in the Air Force. You gave a talk at church last week. I'd like to tell you about my brother." And I had no idea where he was going with it, but I was super excited when he told me he was a combat controller. I went to the academy with a couple of guys who became combat controllers, and then he told me that he was killed in action, and it just it was an emotional moment in the hallways of the ward building, right? To do that, and then a week later he gives me the coin. But I will tell you what we do from an Air Force perspective. It's a tradition. It's actually the third verse of the Air Force song. And so to shorten it, we just simply say, "Here's a toast." But the third verse goes, "Here's a toast to the host of those who love the vastness of the skies. To a friend we send a message of his brother men who fly. We drink to those who gave their all of old, and down we roar to score the rainbow's pot of gold. Here's a toast to the host of the men we boast, the U.S. Air Force." And they've since then changed the words to be more inclusive. But that's what we do when somebody pays that ultimate sacrifice. So glad we got to start the podcast off that way. It's a great idea. Great idea.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I didn't serve in the military, so it's always awesome to hear these little stories and these little tidbits, right, of every branch of service. And there's nothing like the brotherhood or the sisterhood that something like the military can bring, right, to an individual. That those are the memories you have for life. And how interesting, you represent Launch 2035, and I've had Sarah James on from the Tarcock.
Absolute stud.
I've had John Kovach on from Singing River Trail.
Ridiculous stud.
I've had John Joseph IV now from the Entrepreneurial Center.
One of the smartest people I know.
Who all sit on different committees, right? Whether a co-chair or a chair of a committee. And I kind of thought, and then I've had John Allen of the Committee of 100, from which Launch 2035 was born out of.
Kind of the godfather.
Right? So I had mentioned to someone, like, I kind of been doing this out of order. I should have talked to probably John first and then Rob, but isn't it interesting? Kind of a tender mercy where at the end of the day, there's probably, I don't want to say there's no better guest other than maybe Dr. Bo, because he knew the Forresters, but someone like you, Air Force, there's some connections there. You know the Forrester, you know Thad and his kids on the eve of Mark's death. Interesting how things kind of play out.
I had a special opportunity to serve in Air Force Special Operations Command. I flew combat search and rescue 130s on active duty. And so being in that community, and we made a transition to Air Combat Command, which was really unique because it's a lot of fighter pilots. And so you've got this C-130 in there, and they're kind of like, "What do you guys do?" But being in that AVSOC world was phenomenal. And you do understand that brotherhood and that fraternal nature of special operations and what that looks like and putting that uniform on. So, yeah, that is very fortuitous. And there is a tender mercy in that. I agree.
Yeah.
Good call.
I want to start with something that's going on right now that I think is really exciting for you. And let's start with UAH. I want to start with your classroom and the students there. I got my MBA at Old Dominion University. I know you lived in Virginia at some point. We'll talk about that. But and it was actually kind of a distance learning thing way before distance learning is now. It wasn't over the internet. It was actually over ATM, asynchronous transfer mode, which is layer 2 routing.
We're getting old.
Yeah, but it was really awesome. But I say that because I remember making comments after I was done with school. Like, I kind of missed being in the rhythm of school and being around other students, and kind of you're always being forced to research information or pay attention to news. In this case, it was a business degree, and it just kind of kept you in the know, right?
Yeah.
Thirsting for more information to kind of prepare for an assignment or a research paper. But there's just something about being current, where I'm jealous that right now you're teaching and not only that subject matter and sharpening your skills in the world of business, but also just being exposed to these kids, right? That are or even some adults maybe that might be coming back for. But
Troy, it's a bucket list. It's a bucket list item. It totally is. And we're going to get you in there, by the way, to talk to the class. But yeah, it's a bucket list item.
So tell me about. So describe what you're teaching.
Sure.
What's the subject? And then, let's kind of cover what you're doing in the syllabus.
Yep.
And some of the highlights.
Sure.
and we'll go from there. But certainly want to hear about your students and things like that.
Yeah. So Dr. Jason Green is the dean of the business school here at UAH, and I had an opportunity to serve on his board. I still do, on his external advisory board, and I had a passion for business school for a long time, and quite frankly, I got to do an MBA at the University of Texas. The FBI was kind enough to send me a sabbatical at Harvard Business School, which was ridiculous. Change your life kind of experience.
So you went up there.
I did, yeah. So it was a month in, month out, month in, month out, and I think the last month and a half of the program is in sight too. Is on the grounds there. So yeah, so you're living in dorms with a small group and going through that experience. I can tell you for a number of hours on that, but it was an amazing experience. So.
Did you have to sleep in a twin bed?
No, it's very small. But it was brilliant what they did. They created these small groups, right? And so the program I went through at Harvard Business School, it's called the General Management Program, and there were 117 people in the cohort. They split it into actually 4 different cohorts. There were 7 Americans in that program, and so you are getting a true cultural perspective of business across the world.
Wow!
And everybody was wondering what a guy from the FBI was doing there. That was also a fascinating experience. But what you do is you go into the room, you step into your small group area, right? And so on the right-hand side, they have a full-blown executive area with an executive conference table, and that's where you're studying your Harvard Business Case Studies every night. And we went through 6 a day. It was great. Yeah. It was crazy, right? And on the left-hand side, you had a couple couches, big screen televisions, and that was kind of your break area. And it's all open space, but it's kind of divided, by the middle piece. So then you go down the hallway. And you got 4 doors on the right, 4 doors on the left, and those are your dorm rooms, and they're very tiny, but they were appropriate enough for you to decompress and kind of absorb what you learned during the day. But yeah, it's a great setup, great setup right there at Harvard Business School, right on the campus.
So tell me about is it Management 408?
Management 408. So it's a program, a class they have not taught for 4 or 5 years, maybe a little bit longer than that. And it's teamwork and teamwork processes.
Okay.
So that's the focus of the class is really, and putting some science to it. But how do you teach teamwork, right? And part of that is experiential. And so you'll see one of the parts of the syllabus I put together is I want people to come in and talk about teamwork from their perspective, whether it's law enforcement, national security. I've had somebody come in who's a CEO of a small marketing and advertising company and a strategy company. Megan Nivens Tennant came in. She did a phenomenal job.
She's my guest next week.
She'll be awesome.
Yep.
She was phenomenal. She just sat down and had a great conversation with the class. But I want to start that off each class. I started off with a guest speaker to come in and share that perspective, and then we dive in and we do some Harvard Business Case Studies. Yeah. Right. So those are fresh. They're introspective, and we try to take that approach of let's talk through. There's no right or wrong answers, but let's look through it. So we've studied Amazon. We've studied. We'll be studying NASA here soon with the Harvard Business Case Study. All these case studies are geared around teamwork, which is obviously in line with the class. So Jason was kind enough to allow me. I approached him and I said, Jason, I got an itch. I would love to come in if there's even a remote chance to be an adjunct professor. And he looked at me and said, Rob, I've been dying to ask you that question, but I never did because I know how busy you are. And if you're willing to do that, we would be honored and happy to bring you on board. And so him and so the department head is Yetchin Bao is my department head, and they've just cut me loose. They've said, here's the syllabus, define it, roll it out, build it out as you can. And so I'm going through this process now of building a true program.
So they gave you some high level parameters, though.
Just some high level, but it was wide open. I mean, if it was a bowling lane, right, it would be like the whole alley, right?
Okay.
They were giving me the whole alley to kind of focus on how I wanted to bring teamwork to life in the class. So. And fortunately or unfortunately, there were only 9 students that signed up for the first class, which has actually worked out perfect because it's a very intimate class. I think they're getting very comfortable with one another. We're having dialogues back and forth. They're sharing very personal things. Yeah. Right. And so, it's good. It's good.
So, what are some of the mandatory things that you tell them they need to read? Periodicals, stuff online.
So it's mostly, so I'm leveraging that Harvard business case method. That we've got a book that we're studying out of, right? That's a teamwork focused book, a teamwork and team processes, and each chapter is basically a day. And the class meets on Mondays, and it goes from 6 to 8:40 in the evening. So we got them almost for 3 hours. Yeah. And so we're talking through those types of things. We're reviewing the business case studies and applying them to some of the things. things most of these students work. I got student athletes in there. I got former military in there.
Yeah.
I've got moms and dads, and we just had one of our students just had a baby.
Oh, really?
Yeah, his wife just had a baby, so he's showing up 3 days new with his baby in tow online because there's an online component too.
So what does the final look like? Is it
great question. So what we're doing is we're literally going to build the Trash Pandas program from scratch. Yeah. So we're starting out, right? So it started out with you need to pick your 5 VPs. And it's the VP of grounds, it's the VP of sales, it's the VP. And so they're literally figuring out who they would hire to build their team, right? And then the next step is they got to build a charter for their team on how they're going to communicate and how they're going to work towards getting the season started. And so we're framing that up. By the way, I got Mayor Finley coming in a couple of weeks, right? So he's going to give his perspective of what that team looked like as it began to stand up and how the community was involved, and it'll be great to have him on. You got to have him on the show.
So they got to pick what they thought were the 5 most important functions that these VPs would have management control over.
Yeah, and I want them to justify why they chose the people they're going to put in those positions too.
Okay.
So that's another piece of it. But there's 5 phases to this. They'll brief it out at the end of the year, and really, in a couple of phases, we're going to throw them a big curveball, right? So there's going to be a teammate that's going to revolt, and so they got to kind of figure out how to work the team dynamics of, well, this teammate says that the Trash Pandas don't focus enough on X or Y, and I don't want to give them the file. They'll start working ahead on it if they read. I told them all the way. By the way, I said you need to link up with me on LinkedIn. I want to make sure you guys get off to a great start because they're all seniors except for one, which is really cool. So this is a junior senior level class.
Sure.
And my hope is in the spring semester we'll see a full class up to 28 in the full class, and that's where we're going to get you plugged in. It'll be good to have you in there and kind of share some insights on your experiences of making a new home in North Alabama. Well,
what might be interesting for them is if the soccer team is looking for, because they're in the same boat the Pandas were.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I know Nashville probably has something to say about it, but the MLS next team's going to come, right? They're tearing down what used to be the Huntsville Stars. They're building Joe Davis Stadium.
It's exciting over there.
Yeah. But I would imagine Chad Emerson, who's now kind of heading up operations, might be looking for some VPs or might be looking for people to participate in building this new thing, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So they're absorbing it, and I think to me, what I had a heart-to-heart with them yesterday, and I said, at the end of the day, if there's anything I want you to become walking out of this class, I want you to become a better teammate.
Yeah.
Like I want you to become a better teammate. And I want you to recognize when the team is going through certain situations and recognize where you as a teammate can be valuable. Yeah. I also want you to become a better leader when you get a chance to lead a team.
Yeah.
And so I want you to also absorb some of these things we're talking about in class and all these different experiential guest speakers we've got.
So I know there's a lot of, I've mentioned this on other episodes at times, but so much focus on STEM and just engineering, right? And we're in the Rocket City.
You better believe it.
And I've had a lot of guests though that are in marketing or on the radio or doing promotions and things. What is, I guess, 2-part question. One, what is kind of your observation of the kids in college now?
Sure.
Their skills, their abilities, are they socially awkward anyway because they're from the digital age and maybe sometimes we cast incorrect aspersions about them? And then I guess similarly, what are those areas though that you're kind of like, look, you need to really develop this attribute and that attribute to do well in the business world?
I may just be lucky and have nine just high performers, but they're all interactive. I can tell some are more shy than others, right? But I'm not seeing any of that. Like, and keep in mind, these seniors, they went through 2 years of COVID while they're going through college, but they're social. They are engaged. In fact, I didn't publish something I should have published yesterday for them to actually move on to their second part of the project. And they're emailing me, hey, Rob, like, can you make sure you publish this? Like, they're holding me accountable, but I give them all the credit in the world. And they're all professional workers. Like, most of them are working right now. We've got one lacrosse player,
really?
that and he knows what he wants to do on the outside as soon as he graduates. It's really exciting.
So he plays for UAH?
He does. Yeah. And I'm learning all about it, right? They're Division II school. They've got a big rival. But it's been fascinating just to kind of get that perspective. But no, I think there's a unique situation here, and I've been through it, right? So I went to the Air Force Academy, and at the Air Force Academy, it's all engineers, right? You have to take you basically almost get a degree in engineering, even though I got a degree in business management.
Yeah.
but I almost got a degree in engineering. In fact, Raytheon coded me as an engineer in an opportunity that I had with him because I brought my transcript in and I said, this guy's got 2 more engineering classes than I do, but I've got all this. And they said, okay, we'll let you move into the engineering side with that business degree. But my point in that is it was unique to be at an engineering school with a focus on business, and that's what my education experience was. They're in the exact same boat.
Yeah.
UAH at its core is an engineering program, right? But I told them I had an opportunity to speak at one of their graduation events, and I just straight up told them, I said, look, you guys are an absolute commodity. You're unicorns.
Yeah.
This place doesn't need more engineers. It needs more business-minded, focused, business acumen, talented people. And you've got that capability. UAH is prepping you to be really talented. That's why I'm all about hiring local. Like there's enough talent pool coming out. And they just had a UAH recruiting event here like 2 days ago. Ignite was there, right? Pulling resumes, there were a ton of big name programs there, recognizing the value that the UAH MBA or the UAH College of Business brings. So
awesome.
It's pretty cool.
Hey, thanks for mentioning that. It's a good segue. Episode 29 is sponsored by Ignite.
Oh, there you go. All right, good.
Thank you all, and I hope that part of the reason I do video is I want, if you're gonna sponsor an episode, I want it. I do the color set. That is the actual RGB value for the Ignite colors, which is you'll see in that top box with your logo plus the way your screen is framed in.
That's awesome.
So I appreciate everything that you guys do and have done, and on the other side of it, I work for Mantech and hoping we can team up.
We had an amazing meeting last week in that Cyber Summit. That was awesome.
That's right.
Yeah. No, we're off and running. We've already thrown a couple of opportunities your way. We'll see where they go. So,
this is an exciting time of year for me because 1 year ago today, I was in Huntsville for the summit. The summit was in the last week of September.
Yep.
And I went home from the summit and I told my wife, we're moving. And
sounds familiar.
It just came full circle. Like this is 1 year in a way, anniversary of being in Huntsville and, all that ensued. And we've been here since Christmas Eve.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you have literally, I got to commend you. And Mantech should be proud of you. I mean, you've literally come down here and thrown yourself into it.
Yeah, man.
And I took that exact same approach. I look at you and I'm going, he's doing all the right things.
I appreciate it.
He's learning, he's developing, he's building relationships, and he's understanding the culture that's here in North Alabama, which is very unique.
I appreciate that. I was actually out at a meeting today, and do you ever get frustrated where, let's say with Launch 2035, right? You know what kind of effort you put into that and all the people, and we'll talk about Launch 2035 here shortly, but sometimes I would imagine you get frustrated if someone is unaware that you feel should be aware.
It happens.
Right. And I actually was meeting with someone today and it was lost on them.
Yeah.
And they're a long time native of North Alabama. And I was like, you've never heard of the Committee of 100? No. Launch 2035, the Singing River Trail. I was like, well, let me educate you. I only found out a little while ago, but I'll tell you what it's all about. And they were kind of blown away. And they've lived here for 50 years.
So I saw that happen actually. One of the things I didn't mention to you. So I do sit on the board of Leadership Greater Huntsville.
Yeah.
The civic leadership program, and one of the things that was very instrumental in wanting us to stay in the area was this program. So I showed up, and the city councilwoman Jenny Robinson reached out to me. We go to church, and she said, Rob, I would really like you to consider, and I think it'd be good for you and the FBI if you joined this civic leadership program and applied to get in there. She's like, I'd be totally reasonable to write you a recommendation.
Right.
But I think it'd be really important for what you're about to do and how the FBI is about to make some major investments.
So this is back like in 2017?
It was 2017.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it was 2018. So I came down about 6 months before the family.
Okay.
And I was going back and forth. And then the family all got down here in 2018 in February. And so then I said, okay, Jenny, I got it. I'll apply, right? What I didn't realize was that was going to be a significant difference maker, because I saw that exact same thing happen. There were natives of North Alabama in this Leadership Greater Huntsville flagship program with me. There were about 50 of us. and we go around. It's one day a month where you go around and you experience a certain theme. Like today, they just did arts and entertainment.
Okay.
And so they're learning. They went to the Orion Amphitheater. They started out at Rhythm on Monroe, overlooking the Von Braun Center and understanding the things that go down there. They went to Low Mill, right? So they got to experience all those things. I heard more than I could shake a stick at. These local people that were local teammates in this flagship program with me going, I had no idea. I've been here for 50 years. I grew up. I never knew that this was here.
Really?
Right. Yeah. And so that's it's unique. So don't get frustrated when you talk to people. There's just so much going on.
Yeah.
There's so much going on.
Well, and it's like I told when I interviewed John Allen, it depends also what's just going on in your life and your career. And if you're the type that it's your job just drains every last ounce of energy out of you, and you don't have time to look around or you're at the station of life with your kids. It's easy for me to say it now because I remember what it was like when all of my kids were 4 kids under the age of 8, and now 2 are out of the house and 2 are in high school, and there's not as much demand on mom and dad. Right. So I get that.
Yeah.
So I guess the point for our job is to educate those that, hey, you're in that category of, you might have some disposable time.
Yep.
Right. And let's claim it.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go back to Texas.
Love me some Texas. Born and raised, native, baby.
It's funny in DC. Growing up in DC, there's a disease that's called NBD. You know what that means?
I don't, but I'm waiting to hear it.
It's like a Dallas fan who lives in DC that's never been to Dallas, so it's never been to Dallas. NBD, right? But they're like diehard Cowboys fans. And it's like, oh, yeah, so you've been to Dallas? Do you have family in Dallas? No. Like, you suffer from MBD.
I've never heard of that. There is some of that out there. I'm sure, there's, what is it, the MBP, the Never Been Patriot or whatever.
Yeah.
The same thing over there. Yes. But I am a native Texan.
We used to have T-shirts that were like, my 2 favorite teams are the Redskins, now the Commanders, and anybody who plays Dallas.
That's unbelievable.
But you know what? I'm over it because the Commanders are awful.
Yeah.
They'll always be awful as long as Dan Snyder's alive.
Yeah.
So I might as well just be a Cowboys fan.
Come on over.
So I haven't actually met, I've just not interacted with, I have no family that's really lived in Texas. Oh, I have a cousin who's in Austin now and works for Dell. But here's a map. You want to look to your right, or it's a little bit easier.
There it is.
So the marker in the
Metroplex
sand is your Carroll Senior High School, formerly kind of referred to as South Lake Carroll.
That's right.
And you describe, we all know Dallas Fort Worth. That's the airport.
Big airport.
What is there? My first question is, because they always get lumped together. What is the distinction between Fort Worth and Dallas? Kind of is there a rivalry between the two?
No, there's a culture. There's a different culture, right? They say keep Dallas pretentious, right? It's a little, but I love Dallas. Like we Dallas is a great place.
Mm-hmm.
But I think my persona and my personality, my family's personality fits better in Fort Worth. Just being totally honest with you.
Is it more family oriented?
Yeah, it is. It's Cowtown, right? Like it's, you got the stockyards. You've got, and I guess I'm just kind of biased, right? I grew up there. I'll admit that up front.
Sure.
But I grew up in the Dallas Fort Worth area, so. But I swung more to the Fort Worth side, and South Lake was more on the Fort Worth side.
So then we see on this map, we see Fort Worth, but we see up in red the Carroll Senior High School. So where did you live, kind of in relation to that?
Great question. So you're going to expose me here. So I actually lived in Grapevine.
In Grapevine. Okay, so just east of there.
Just east, right? And Grapevine, what was unique about Grapevine is the subdivision I lived in was annexed into South Lake schools.
Okay.
So I was incredibly grateful for that. My father worked 25 years for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. I was a native Texan, born and raised, and so you really ingratiated yourself with the culture of everything going on there. But yeah, so I lived in Grapevine. All my friends were from that subdivision, and I had some great friends that were actually South Lake natives, like South Lake proper. But South Lake was where all the professional athletes lived.
Really?
Yeah. All the Cowboys, all the Rangers, all the Dallas Stars. It was a very wealthy town, and we were not wealthy. We weren't poor, but we were not wealthy on that side.
Now that lake, that's the Grapevine Lake.
Big lake.
So that's a pretty cool lake.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Man-made.
Yeah.
But yeah, lots of water sports out there. There's a couple lakes out there, but Grapevine's the one obviously that's closest. Yeah. And it would flood every now and again. It was interesting.
Now, for those the old Dallas Texas Stadium was in Irving,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And I honestly can't remember where the new Cowboy Stadium
Arlington.
is. It's in Arlington.
Yeah, it's right next to the Rangers. Stadium.
Rangers.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So there's that shot. We'll come back to that map. But so tell me about brothers and sisters.
Yeah, I got one little brother.
Okay.
One kid brother.
What's his name?
His name's Matt.
Matt.
Yeah, super proud of that kid. He did some time at Texas Tech, went to North Texas. He's got his PhD. He teaches history at Grayson College.
Really?
In North Texas. Yeah.
Okay.
And he should have been a lawyer. He's so good at articulating his thoughts, and I think the world of him. Super proud of him. He just had his first daughter here a couple of years ago, and I see a tremendous change in him, and it's been really cool to see him just continue to grow.
Mom and dad?
Yeah. So my mom lives in she actually moved to the Dallas side, so she lives on the Dallas side now, but she did live on the Fort Worth side. And my brother lives on the Dallas side, so that's why she moved over to get a little bit closer to him. And love my mom. I give so much credit to her for always supporting me. If we get into talking about my experiences of just trying to get into the Air Force Academy, she was a guiding light
really
during that experience. My dad was the guy that I just looked up to.
Mm-hmm.
He was a huge sports fan, just like I am. That's where I get it. We did everything together. My dad passed away in 2011.
Okay.
And it was an amazing experience because I got a call that he wasn't going to make it through the night. Mm-hmm. And I never missed my alarm. I had missed my alarm to get up to go to DC from Stafford. And so I had to take the Virginia Railway Express. I took the VRE.
Wow.
And when I was coming home, I got a call that said, "Hey, your dad's in really bad shape." And so he had cancer, liver cancer. And it happened real fast, like from flash to bang. It was like 3 weeks.
Wow.
That, hey, you've got a real problem here. To he's not going to make it tonight. So it just so happened the Rangers were playing the Cardinals, Game 6 of the World Series, and the Rangers were never good when I was growing up. They always tried; they'd be great until the All-Star break, and then they would fall off, would never make any big acquisitions, and so here they were in the World Series, and so. Because I was on the VRE and not on my van pool, which would have been very difficult to get off of the HOV lane, right? Remember, it's just like it's blocked in, right?
Yeah.
Because I was on the VRE, I was able to hop right off, just last stop in DC, turn right around, get back to Reagan, catch a flight. My brother picked me up, got in there, and it was probably around 10:30, 11 o'clock. I literally caught a flight. Like I went there, and it's like, I need a flight. They put me on in like 15 minutes.
Really?
And got me a bereavement flight, boom, heading right back to Dallas. We get in, and my dad is incoherent, right? And he's sitting there, he's laying there. And my brother warned me. He said he doesn't know what's going on. He's not responsive. Just want to give you a heads up. Like, we just need to be with him. I walk in there, and sure enough, he's got the Ranger game on. Right?
Really?
Yeah. So he's got the Ranger game on. He's not moving, not acknowledging anything. Bottom of the ninth, 2 balls, 2 strikes. Natali Feliz is up there throwing heat, and we're literally 1 strike away. And I forget, I think his name was Dave Freeze or whatever, but he hits the ball to right field, and Nelson Cruz gets a horrible jump on it, misses the ball by about an inch or 2, right? And my dad goes, I'm not making this up. And my brother and I turn and look, and we're like, oh, he's here. He knows exactly what's going on.
Yeah, it's so, Rangers.
He was, and Rangers never won a World Series, right? And it was a really cool moment. He passed away that evening. The Rangers ended up losing it in the bottom of the 10th. Josh Hamilton, of all people, who we had Hamilton jerseys, we wore them. He hits what we thought was the game-winning 2-run shot in the top of the 10th. And then in the bottom of the 10th, Freeze again clears the bases. They win the ball game. We go into Game 7 the next day or 2 days later, but it was fruitless at that point in time. It was so much energy taken out by losing that game the way they did. But
man, be able to sit around the hospital bed with your father one more time with a Rangers game.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
And that was our thing.
Yeah.
Like that's what we did. He took me out of school to go when they opened the first ballpark in Arlington, the one that they don't use anymore.
Yeah.
He took me out of school to go to that. He had the Fort Worth Star Telegram had season tickets, so we probably went to 15 or 20 games a year.
Yeah.
To go see him.
he was probably in his 60s when he passed.
He was 57.
57.
So you get that
That's pretty
mortality,
young.
right? It's real young.
Ooh.
You kind of put that mark out there and you go, okay, like that's early.
Yeah.
And you start to look internally and go, okay, I probably should lose a few pounds and make sure I take care of myself.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
So talk to me about your childhood a little bit then. You're just a sports nut all the time. And
Sports nut. You know, you've heard the expression like goodly parents that raised me right? Like they were incredible, incredibly patient. I had some challenges when I was young. I had attention deficit disorder, was diagnosed with it. And it actually caused me to have to get a waiver to eventually get into the Air Force Academy. And I can tell you all about that. But
were you on medication?
I was for 1 year. 1 year. I would argue that I probably just needed a good butt whooping. But the reality was I was on medication, and that's what the Department of Defense Medical Review Board didn't like, and so we had to go through a waiver process to get there. But no, incredible childhood, sports, like you said, all the time. I remember the first time we got football pads and brought them home, and all the neighborhood kids that we all played football together, we played football in our pads in my front yard. You know, I remember during the summers we would we'd get the tennis ball and we'd play baseball in my front yard, and we'd wear out these base pads in the front yard, right? Like you're just playing with a tennis ball and just literally playing all day, and then going and playing in your all-star leagues and all that stuff in the evenings. But yeah, it was sports year round. You know, baseball, basketball, football.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds a lot like what I did. Yeah. Baseball, basketball, football.
Yeah.
No soccer?
A little bit.
Early on.
You know, I tell people this. I hope nobody gets offended. Like in Texas, soccer competed with football in the same season, right?
Yeah, sure.
And so we had football coaches that made a point to say, you know, soccer is a communist sport. We don't play that here. Clearly, I know it's not. But it was interesting, right? Like, but no soccer. I played that until like middle school. Yeah, and then started just focusing. It was football, baseball, basketball.
So your name is, I guess, common enough, like a Rob Hamilton. That I tried and tried. Did you play on the high school team and everything?
Oh yeah.
I just couldn't find anything. But we're old enough too that unless the newspaper or whomever digitizes that, it's harder for us in our 40s to find our glory stuff written in print.
It was an amazing experience. So South Lake Carroll is known as a powerhouse football program.
Oh yeah,
I've got a state championship ring. Played on a state championship football team.
Did you?
I did. A sophomore. So freshman year, sophomore year, they went back to back in 3A. Now they're big 6A. They didn't even have 6A when I was in high school, but now they're playing on ESPN and doing things like that. We weren't that good, but we were tough, and we carried the tradition of winning, a dragon tradition, South Lake Carroll Dragons. We carried that tradition. My senior year, we went 10-0, made it to the playoffs, lost in the first round. Very emotional, just growing up with those guys and playing football, through the whole thing. But I learned a ton of experiences. I'll be honest, a ton of life lessons on the football field. And we were a phenomenal program.
What position did you play?
Wide receiver and free safety.
Okay.
And so the free safety is what I played sophomore year. I played on the JV team, and they moved a few of us up for the playoffs.
Yep.
And so that was a phenomenal experience. I remember first round of playoffs sophomore year, I'm getting out there, and they had the other three defensive backs were all seniors, right? And I was replacing a senior. They set him down. He was the stud of the team. His name was Dane Johnson. The guy walked on water. He played at Texas Tech. He was awesome. And so I couldn't breathe. Like I was like, everything was moving so fast, right?
Yeah.
And I get in the huddle. They call the defensive play. I step back out, and the snap is an offsides on the offense, right? And I'll never forget it. I connected with this guy like a year ago, but he was kind of one of those guys I looked up to. His name was Chad Baller. He was a cornerback. He goes, "Hey, Hamilton." He's like, "Breathe." And I looked at him, and I was like, "Okay," And he's like, "Look," he goes, "I'm going to pick the next play off. I'm going to run it back for a touchdown. We're going to get you on the sidelines, get you some oxygen, right?" And I was like, "Okay." Sure enough, they run a 6-yard hitch. He steps in front. I'm the first guy to tackle that guy in the end zone. And I'm like, "How did you know?" Right?
That's awesome.
No,
man.
and he looks at me, and he goes 42-0 like that. And he doesn't even remember the story. I connected with him because I share the story all the time. But there was a confidence in him because he'd never lost a high school football game.
Yeah.
And it was just,
so that was his aggregate record.
Yeah.
42-0.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it was phenomenal, right? And then the game slowed down, right? You got through that, and I think that's like life, right? You got to go out and either hit or get hit,
Yeah.
and then you're in the game,
Yeah.
And so there were just so many life lessons. Playing on the high school baseball team my senior year, we got to play in the state semifinals down in Austin, which was awesome because we had graduated like 4 or 5 days before. But then we go down to Austin, and here we are, and we played all summers together, all the seniors, and we're making a run for a state championship.
Yeah.
It was just phenomenal.
All right, so check this out.
Yeah.
Check your screen.
Yeah.
All right, so that's Carroll High School,
Hell to Carroll High.
formerly referred to as South Lake Carroll.
That's right.
I think
that's
now
still referred to.
it's interesting. Like you'll see it online. Like, well, it's formerly, but it's now Carroll Senior High. But
Here's what they do, right?
Yeah.
They refuse to split the high school, which is brilliant, right? So that's how you keep all the talent in one school.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So we'll make the senior high just have seniors, right? And then we'll have another school that just has sophomores and juniors.
see.
And then we'll have a freshman. I don't know if it's exactly broken out that way, but every year when they put that up to a vote, the town goes, no, we're not splitting a high school. We're not creating a second South Lake Carroll.
So for those who are listening, I'm showing a picture. I'm going to go through a few pictures for his high school. I had thought about maybe doing this at the end in pick 6, but this seems to be the best place to go through this. So there's just the, if you were to roll up and see the sign, then we have, now this is 1980,
Bob Ledbetter,
1990 maybe, or 1988. They're going in for the state final.
Texas high school legend, football
That
coach.
guy?
Absolutely.
This is the old stadium. We had that awesome trademark hole in the roof.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
It didn't cover up. There was just a hole in that roof.
Yep.
But there wasn't a retractable feature.
That's why, right?
No.
So God could watch the Cowboys. I hope you know that, right?
Now
you're
I
gonna
do.
sit there and, now you do. Don't forget it.
So this is like, if you've ever seen the movie Hoosiers, this type of thing, right? Where you're going through a walkthrough, these guys have just got to be, I know maybe you're used to it in Texas, but what an experience, right? To play at a professional stadium of that magnitude.
So, and I'll tell you, when I first started dating my wife, we went to a South Lake Carroll High School playoff game at Texas Stadium.
Really?
37,000 fans.
All right, let me go this way. Now here's just some warm ups.
Yeah,
I love
there
the
you
guy.
go.
The bike was like the apparel. They wore the bike shorts, and the coaches.
All
got
those coaches.
He's got like sweatpants underneath his bike shorts, and then just that classic bomber jacket thing.
It's probably around Thanksgiving. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I think it was the 22nd of November, 1990.
Yeah.
Now this guy, do you know him?
Wow. So that's
Let's see if you can get this.
that's not Will. That's David Blanchard.
No,
Who is that?
Jason Fernandez.
Oh, he set the national record for kicker.
Yes.
He's a kicker.
This is an All-American picture. He's holding his
Yep.
All-American trophy
Yep.
with your coach.
He didn't miss a single extra point or field goal.
That shot was taken on December 13th, 1990.
Yeah, I remember that. Even the kicker was a stud.
Yeah.
So we had some talent.
And then this is, I guess, the end, and you're celebrating.
Yeah.
This is actually not in Texas Stadium. This is at your high school. If you look at the bleachers and the press box.
Yeah.
And now here's a baseball shot.
There you go. They win the state. They're playing in the state championships like every other year in baseball. I think they won it last year.
It looks like the bat boy is on top of the pile there.
It's our first baseman, actually. So
You don't want to be at the bottom of that pile.
no, some broken limbs.
And some of this, like we were talking about earlier with like the brotherhood of being in the military, just being on a team.
It started here. It absolutely started here.
It's just, sports is just nothing like it. There's another 5th state championship, right, that they've won. Here's another shot. And then
they built this. We did not play at this high school stadium.
Yeah.
We played all grass, and now it's like the middle school. So they turned it into the middle school stadium. This was like the first big stadium, one of the first big stadiums in North Texas. And it was very fitting, right, to lay this out. But
I just don't see many end zones or any sort of turf just painted in that much black.
yeah.
And I even noticed, I saw a baseball picture where their uniforms were just black on black.
Yeah. We had this tradition. We had black pants that
Right.
we would only bring out in big games, and we wouldn't tell anybody. And so it'd be a playoff game, and it'd be like they're wearing the black pants this week, right? You roll out there. Is that Quinn Ewers?
I didn't write down this name, but what do you see when you? There's one thing I want in particular I want to point out, but what do you see when you see this picture?
So first off, I think that's former Texas or former South Lake Carroll high school great quarterback Riley Dodge, who's now like 30 years old and coaching South Lake Carroll.
Okay.
And by the way, he played against his dad in the state championship, who's coaching at Austin Westlake,
Okay.
which is also a powerhouse in football.
Okay.
But no, I see an intensity between the coach and the quarterback. I see the beautiful hair hanging out the back, right?
Yeah.
So they turned in. We used to shave our heads completely. They started bleaching their hair after they got into the playoffs. So
Gotcha.
yeah, that was the thing.
You know what I notice?
What's that?
If you're a visiting team, or it doesn't have to be a visiting team, or if you're playing at home and the visiting team shows up, or you're going on the road, when you see someone with that many, in this case, he has stars on his helmet.
Yeah.
Those are usually good play stickers.
That's right.
Right. That's a stud.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
and those are the ones you notice right away
Yep.
that are going to be your captains of the team, or otherwise, oh man, there's your playmaker.
Most of those were actually team goals.
Team goals.
Yeah, so we would set goals before each game. There's so many life lessons. Again, Texas high school football taught me so much, but we would set goals before the game. We're going to rush for this many yards. We're going to get this many blocks. We're going to, blah, and then we would review that on the Saturday morning, and then the stickers would be handed out on Monday as we prep for the new team for that week. So
this is Air Force Academy.
I just saw that.
I had to sneak that in there.
Yeah,
That's a cool shot.
That was a life changer. Yeah, there you go.
And we'll come back to the Air Force Academy, but there's nothing like seeing the 4 captains.
Yep.
And then it looks like they may even have some secondary level captains behind them.
Probably seniors.
Probably
coming out.
seniors coming out for the last game.
Yep.
That scoreboard's amazing.
Yeah.
But were you a captain ever?
So I wasn't on the football team. I won the C
okay.
award on the baseball team. But the captains were just studs. I mean, they were awesome. I'll tell you, Troy, we didn't have a single kid but one go play college football actually in my senior year. He went to UTEP. Phenomenal guy. His name was Kerry Clayton. We called him Quick Hoss. But Quick Hoss was the center. And he was a left-handed center too, so it always threw the quarterbacks off. But
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Like, so here you are. South Lake Carroll is I think I have a graphic here where in the top 25 of all the high schools in the country.
they won like 3 mythical national championships.
And you're telling me
yeah.
this was how hard it is to play not only at the collegiate level but in the NFL. And you're
it's-
telling me of all of that, not even one person went to college.
It's changed a lot.
Has
right? And it's changed in the sense that the athletes have gotten better. Like I look at that and I'm like, man. And by the way, we ran the option when I was there, right? So I was a wide receiver, right? So we threw the ball maybe 4 or 5 times a game. So I was great at cut blocking. I could cut block a DB. And block outside, but we ran the option when I was at South Lake Carroll, and that was what we were known for, was smash mouth football. But football evolved, and coaches started picking up the passing game, and they started doing those 7-on-7 tournaments, and South Lake was big on that. And so then they just started creating this machine, right? So Greg McElroy, Chase Daniel, Riley Darge, those are all South Lake Carroll. Quinn Ewers now at University of Texas.
Yeah.
Those are all South Lake Carroll grads who threw for 5,000 yards a season.
Greg McElroy's coach, quarterback at Alabama,
I've heard of him
and now on the radio every morning
at ESPN
in Birmingham.
He's killing it. Yeah, he moved in Birmingham. In fact, he said he was so tired of hearing about that Texas. That was a big influence by me. That's a story for another time. But I actually thought about that game when I was told by the FBI that we were going to move down to Huntsville, Alabama. I thought about that game, and
Really?
I had to reconcile that in my mind. When they broke Colt McCoy, and we ended up losing that national championship game. But and so I heard that he moved from Texas to Birmingham.
And he calls games on the SEC network.
He's good.
He's really good. In fact, I almost sometimes will mistake him from Herb Street.
Yeah,
He's that good.
Herb Street's a legend.
Oh yeah,
I love those guys.
yeah. I know you do. I got that prepared too. But here, I just want to. So Max Preps, right? Are you familiar with Max Preps?
Oh yeah.
So here's what's interesting, right? Like the schools in Virginia, you can type it in and it'll be like, this whatever our hometown school ranked like, I don't know, 100th or 200th in the whole state. Here's South Lake. This is what they got going on this year. They're 5-0. If you notice, they've scored 264 points and in 5 games they've only given up 27.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
It's basically 3 points a game.
Yeah.
And then if you scroll down, they're right now ranked 24th in the nation.
Yeah.
So things haven't changed much. Mm-mm. And they, you mentioned Keller Central. They got them coming up, and then Keller's coming up as well.
Yeah. No, they beat Haltom. It looks like 62-0 there last week. So I mean, they're a phenomenally coached team. They're talented. They're disciplined. The saying we had at South Lake Carroll was "Find a way to win."
Yeah,
find a way to win. And I believe this. I believe that success breeds success. It doesn't mean that it can't happen in certain places, but I believe when you have successful families, successful parents in their vocations, right? That tends to bleed over into ways that children are raised, and they just expect success and they know how to work hard for it. And that's what I grew up in with the people that I got to play football, baseball, some basketball with in high school. They all came from very successful families, and there was an expectation of hard work, and there was going to be an outcome for that, and it was going to be positive.
I remember, like a lot of times at halftime, like when I played like JV football, I always liked how the coach would be like, in JV, we didn't go back to the locker room. We would just kind of have
over the
halftime
end
on
zone.
the field.
Yeah.
And he would be like, he'd point to the other side of the field. Do you see anybody on that team that's that good? Is there anybody on that team that you can't tackle or outrun? And you're like, no. Well, then prove it, right?
Yeah.
And it always worked. In the second half, we'd always like have a little bit more belief in ourselves.
I got to be honest with you, Troy. Like we played, I would be willing to, anecdotally, half the teams we played were better athletes than we were.
Really?
But it was almost like the Air Force Academy, right? They're always typically out-athleted, right?
Athleted, yeah.
Yeah, they're out, that's a word, out-athleted. But the reality is they play as a team.
Yeah.
And they play disciplined.
Right.
And that many times overcomes athleticism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It is. I saw it firsthand.
So, were you a good student?
So great question. I worked hard, studied hard. I didn't even know what studying really was, though, Troy.
But you're also struggling a little bit with the ADD or the ADHD?
So medication for a year, I think. So I turned it around in high school, right? I learned how to deal with it. And in fact, my coaches in high school football were like, when they heard the stories of the way I acted in middle school, they're like, you're going to go back and you're going to apologize to those teachers. They were like, you're going to go back and you're going to apologize. They took me down there to do that.
Do you remember me?
Yeah. Some of them, I thought they were going to run into their classrooms. Like they literally took me down there, by the way, to middle school. Yes.
Really?
And had me apologize to some of those teachers. And so from a student perspective, I thought that I would just kind of, hey, I'm going to apply to the Air Force Academy. I'm going to get in.
Yeah.
Right. And the first interview I had with a liaison officer whose responsibility is to help navigate potential candidates to the Air Force Academy, and then help the Air Force Academy also whittle out who's legit and who's not. The first interview, I set it up. It was my junior year. By the way, I'd want to go to the Air Force Academy since I was in 4th grade.
Really?
I went to an air show. I got a picture with a Thunderbird pilot. My hat's crooked. I got mustard on my shirt. Right. I got big buck teeth and bangs hanging down in my hat. But I was so enamored with how that pilot stood, how he treated me, how he talked to me, and I firmly believe that they are in a recruiting mode all the time when they do those air shows, because it got me.
Now, was your father in the military?
He was not, but my grandfather was.
Okay.
Yeah, and so my dad was a military brat, Air Force brat, and they finished in Colorado Springs. So
you looked up to your grandfather then?
I did, for his military service.
So you had some of that, which then when you go see the Thunderbirds, you're like, okay.
Yep. And I knew at that point in time, like, that's what I wanted to do. And my dad kept that picture. He kept that picture on his vanity in his bathroom all the time. That was always there. Yeah, and those influences. It's amazing to think about that, because I literally just saw that by taking my kids to the Air Force Academy for my 20th year reunion. I could see the same twinkle in some of their eyes.
Really?
Yeah. My youngest daughter, like I took a picture with her next to the basketball court, because she likes basketball, right? And so she's in 4th grade, and I saw in her eyes, like, wow, this is neat.
Yeah.
I saw in my senior's eyes, my oldest son Robbie, he was asking all these questions, and I looked at Melissa and I said, we came 2 years too late.
Really?
We should have come out here when he was a sophomore. And I wish that we would have. So note to anybody who's listening, right? When you get that prompting, go with it.
Yeah.
And be the father or mother of your family and help your children be inspired. So that's what my dad did. He told me about the Air Force Academy after that air show, and I was sold. I think he was more looking at it like, if he goes there, I don't have to worry about college.
Now, remind me, where was the air show?
So the air show was in Fort Worth at Carswell Air Force
okay,
Base.
got
Yep. And we were living in Fort Worth. And so he told me all about the Air Force Academy, and I decided right then and there that's where I was going to go.
Well, and I would imagine, even though it was Navy, the original Top Gun had to have some sort of influence on you.
If you talk to half my class, they tell you that's the reason why they went to the academy.
Oh, I'm sure.
And even though it was Navy, well, we had Iron Eagle, right? Like, you got Lou Gossett Jr. and Iron Eagle, or you got Maverick and Top Gun Tom Cruise, and so that was a big inspiration for a majority of the young men and women that I served with and went through the Air Force Academy with. So fast forward senior year, I'm going to have my first interview with my Air Force Academy liaison officer, and he goes, "Okay, tell me your SAT score." And I tell him. And he goes, "Ooh." No, he didn't even give me that. He put his pencil down and he goes, "Son, you need to look at other options. We're going to go ahead and conclude this interview."
Wow.
That was it.
That's sobering.
Yeah. Fourth grade to then. And I looked at him, didn't think he was serious, because in my mind I was like, well, I'm getting in. Like, I wanted to go since fourth grade. I've got all the T-shirts. I've got all the sweatshirts. My grandmother lives in Colorado Springs. We go visit her once a year, and I go see the academy. And now you're telling me I need to pursue other options. And so I remember, so there were 3 or 4 kids in my graduating class that went to the Air Force Academy, which is unheard of, by the way. And one of them, I think, went to the prep school, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. And that's a ticket into the academy as long as you do well. And so I remember the night they were handing out awards. So they were going to hand out the appointments to these kids. They were going to hand out all these scholarships. And in walks the liaison officer.
Oh.
And I saw him, and I was so mad and angry. And I was supposed to get a scholarship from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. I'd applied. My dad worked there. I'd applied, and they were going to give me like a $2,500 scholarship. And I didn't even know what I was going to do. Like, I hadn't made up my mind. But when I saw that liaison officer, I was angry, right? Because I felt like he had told me my dream wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
And so I didn't even go to the event. I went into the basketball court and shot baskets.
Really?
For an hour and a half. Yeah. My parents were like, "Where were you? They called your name. Like, you didn't go up and get your scholarship." And I was like, I didn't want to be there.
Wow.
Yeah. I didn't want to be there. And so I go through the process, the nomination process. And Joe Barton was the congressman of District 6, I think, in North Texas. Tons of candidates come in from North Texas, big area, right? DFW Metroplex. Mm-hmm. And he handled most of the Fort Worth side. And I remember going in for that interview, and it was a who's who of people I played on the football field, that were all looking to go to the Air Force Academy. I was like, this is stiff competition. And same thing. Like, I walk in and there's a couple mayors on the board. There's some civic leaders. There's some, I think there was a graduate of the Air Force Academy. And they were like, "Rob, your SAT's pitiful, And why do you think you deserve a chance? Like, we don't want to crush you here, but we just want to understand, like, why you're here." And I told them, fourth grade, this is what I wanted. This is what I wanted to do. And they were like, "Well, we wish you the best of luck. We're pretty sure you're not going to get accepted, even if we were to give you a nomination, because you just don't have the grades to do this." And so I remember we had season tickets to TCU football, and I think that was on a Friday, and I went on a Saturday to the TCU game. And I was sitting down in the end zone by myself, and I was thinking to myself, am I going to give up on this dream, or am I going to fight and say, well, I'm not going to take no for an answer? And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go, but I remembered my dad had taken me. I'm sorry. No, it was about 3 or 4 weeks later. We went to Colorado Springs for Christmas. Mm-hmm. My dad takes me up to the academy and lets a cadet. They have a program where you can shadow a cadet for a couple hours. And I got to eat in the cadet wing with 4,400 cadets, right? And here's my dream. I've been told I can't have it. This cadet at the end of the table says, "Hey, nothing for nothing, but if for whatever reason you don't get the nomination and then they don't accept you and you get an appointment, he knew nothing about my background, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, he could have looked at me and been like, "Oh, this kid's getting in. Look at him. He's a physical specimen," whatever, right? But he says, "Nothing for nothing. There's a place I went to. It's called New Mexico Military Institute out in Roswell, New Mexico. And you ought to look into it if it's something that interests you and you want to get there that bad."
Wow.
I heard it, absorbed it, Didn't think anything of it. Sat in a couple more classes. My dad picked me up, and it was a great experience, right?
I know where this is going.
Yeah. So then I get that paperwork that says you're not going to receive a nomination from Joe Barton, but we'll give you. I think they gave me like you're the 10th alternate,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So in some respects, it was like, was it Jim Carrey or who? Somebody's. So you're saying there's a chance?
Yeah, I was just about to quote Dumb and Dumber.
Yes, there it is. So it's Dumb and Dumber, right?
Yeah.
And so, so honestly, Troy, that's all I needed. And so I immediately told my dad, I said, hey, I had this conversation with this cadet at lunch. There's this place in New Mexico Military Institute. It's called a prep school.
Yeah.
Or it's a prep school for the Air Force Academy. I think we ought to look into it. And so come to find out, they got a baseball team. Come to find out, they're looking for baseball players.
Oh, wow.
So we start working from that angle, right? And start looking to say, how can I get out there? We contact the academy. Come to find out, they actually sponsor 25 or so potential cadets to go to New Mexico Military Institute as academy, what they called Falcon Foundation Scholarship cadets. And so I was like, I got to figure out how to do that. So I worked my tail end off to get a Falcon Foundation scholarship. And
Wow.
the Falcon Foundation came back and said, your grades just aren't good enough. We can't give you a Falcon Foundation scholarship.
Oh, my.
But you can still go to NIMI and prep. And maybe that would be enough to get you over the hump. Clearly, you've got to improve your SATs or your ACTs or one of them.
So it's kind of like maybe going to community college where
It was a community college, yeah.
or a university has an agreement. Come in and prove yourself. You can overcome the SAT by getting good grades.
So you still got to get the scores on the ACT.
You
or
still
SAT.
have to. Okay.
Yeah, still had to get those scores, right? So
Interesting.
So Troy, a lot of prayer, a lot of thoughts about what do I need to do. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going after it. I'm going out there. Scholarshipless and all. I'm going out to New Mexico Military Institute.
And how old are you when you go out there?
18.
Okay. So you've graduated high school.
Graduated high school,
Got it.
and I'm moving straight from baseball in high school to baseball now at New Mexico Military
What
Institute.
position did you play in baseball?
Played in the outfield.
Okay. You got
at
a
NIMI,
cane inferno.
At NIMI, they put me on the mound.
Okay.
which was fascinating because I'd sit there and I'd throw fastballs, and I was like a middle reliever closer sometimes. We only won like 7 or 8 games. And we played a full like 45, 55 game schedule. But
Catcher comes out and asks me if this has ever happened to you. Hey, what are your signs? I throw a fastball, and I could probably throw a changeup. I'll throw a little slower, but there's no breaking balls.
No, it's going to land it's going to land 3 feet in the dirt.
Just give me the one every time. Just give me the fastball sign. I'm throwing fastball.
You hear the dugout, right? And the dugout's like, sit fastball. You're like, okay, you got me.
All right, sorry.
But I go out there without a scholarship, and I buddy up immediately. So they've got their own academy liaison officer out there, right? And he pulls me under his wing and he says, look, I like what you're trying to do. He goes, if somebody drops out, I'm going to try to get you in the scholarship program. But if not, I don't care. I'm going to have you still come to all the meetings. You're going to be involved with all these folks, these 25 folks that are prepping to get to the academy, and you stay close with them. And so I was incredibly grateful for him to do that. I did not ever end up getting a scholarship, but I got the ACTs where I needed them to be.
Nice.
I got the SATs where I needed them to be, and to qualify, right? And so I go through my entire year in Roswell, New Mexico, and play baseball in the fall, play baseball in the spring, and we actually played the Air Force Academy's JV baseball program, which was really cool. Yeah, it was like, there's your dream again.
Yeah,
but you can't touch it. Right? You're playing against it.
Did you beat them?
We beat them a couple times.
Good.
Yeah. So and I was being recruited at that point in time by the Air Force Academy, which was a good thing, right?
Okay.
So that was starting to happen. Then Dobmerb sends me a note and says, hey, you're disqualified because you took Ritalin in middle school.
Oh, gosh.
So now I've got the scores, right, to actually the minimum scores to get in. I'm out here, trying to prep out in nowhere, New Mexico. Roswell is actually really cool, by the way. It was a great experience. Sure. It was the perfect experience for me to go through. So then they come back and they say, now you're medically disqualified. And I'm like, wait, that's it? And they're like, yeah, that's it, unless you want to try to find a waiver. And I was like, well, then we're going to line up the waiver.
This is where your mom comes into play, right?
Absolutely, right. She gets on the horn. Well, she's been in the play the entire time,
okay.
Troy. She's been the encourager. This is what you got to do. I'm gonna fight for you. I'm gonna push you a lot. I'm not gonna let you give up on this dream. So we fight over like a 4-month period. And this is like before like email and the internet was a thing, right? We get all the paperwork. I get recommendations from high school, from my doctor, from everybody, and we fax this stuff in to Dodmerb. And in like 4.5 months, we get a waiver.
Wow.
Which is unheard of.
Yeah.
The military moved in 4.5 months to give me a waiver.
Yeah.
But guess what? It was during the summer, and the class of 2001 had already been processed. So I missed the opportunity. I didn't get an appointment. By the way, it was really cool to go back to Joe Barton's board and sit down in a NIMI cadet uniform. And they go, Mr. Hamilton, you're back here again. Look at you.
Wow.
Your scores are improving. They're not there yet, but maybe if you take this thing in January or February, you'll get where you get to go. So then they gave me the second alternate, right?
Okay.
Or third alternate.
Okay.
Not the primary appointment. So it's like June, I get the waiver, and now I've got a decision to make. Do I go on my mission? Do I give up on all this and go on my mission?
Yeah.
Do I go back to NIMI and prep another year? Or do I just give up and go to Texas or Texas A&M? Which I was really impressed with the Corps. I thought that maybe that was an option, right? And I'm working for one of my best friends at the time. Him and his dad owned a home building company. So we're building houses during the summer.
In Roswell?
No, this is back in Dallas.
Back
in Fort Worth, right? And so I get a call. His name was Gerald Miller. I love the Millers, just salt of the earth people. James Miller was one of my best buds, right? My mom calls Gerald and says, Rob needs to come home. He just got a call from the Air Force Academy.
Really?
Yeah. So I'm driving home. I'm not sure what this is about. Nobody has a cell phone. We don't have cell phones, right? And I pull into the yard or pull into the driveway, and Mom says that Lil Anaya, my guidance and admissions counselor for the Air Force Academy, she covered like Texas, New Mexico, and Louisiana, right?
Yeah.
And I knew her by first name because I've been trying now for 3 years to get into the academy.
Persistence.
Yeah. She calls and she says, Rob, what would you do if I told you I had an appointment to the U.S. Air Force Academy prep school? And I said, Lil, I would kiss you on the mouth and send you a dozen roses. She goes, you could save that kiss, but I'll take the roses. And then she goes, you got 2 days to get here.
Wow.
Right. And my mom, I called Gerald. I said, I got to follow a dream. Right. And my buddy James, who's my best friend at the time, he's like, bro, I got to come with you. This is amazing. Like, this is unbelievable. You're going to get your shot, right? You're one step closer. And the prep school is actually on the grounds of the academy. So we turn around, we drive up, to Colorado Springs very fast. And
Is that about like a 9-hour drive?
That's 12-hour drive.
12 hours?
12-hour drive from Dallas Fort Worth area. Okay. And so we pull in. People are jumping out of airplanes. There's gliders flying everywhere. It's all the magic that I'd seen before, right? But now I'm one step closer because now I'm in the academy prep school. So then my buddy James is just soaking it in, right? And he goes, this place is amazing. I said, dude, this is what I've been trying to get to. And so I show up for basic training. My mom drops me off, and they're screaming at me. You know, a couple of officers, actually, because officers that just graduated the academy come down and coach for some of the sports programs at the prep school. And then they step aside and they say, there's somebody here that wants to meet you. And they step to the side. And I'd never met her before, but Lil Anaya is there. And she goes, Rob, she goes, I'm blown away with your persistence. I was so proud to be able to call you.
Wow.
You were like the last person that we got in. And I just wanted to come shake your hand.
That's awesome.
It was awesome. Yeah. The Paul Harvey piece is my buddy James falls in love with it. He decides to apply. James gets an appointment and a nomination and appointment to the academy before I do. And I'm at the prep school, right? I didn't get mine until like April. He got his in like February.
He just had really good scores.
Yeah. Oh, James he's just wicked smart.
Yeah.
Wicked smart. He's an investment banker now. So the Paul Harvey story to that is that we both show up to the academy together.
Wow.
We're going through basic training. Now I got my best buddy. He's drank the Kool-Aid. He's excited. He's already done 2 years at Texas A&M. We show up together. 5 weeks into basic training, he sees me in the mailroom. And he says, Rob, he goes, Katie's sick. Katie was a girl he met about 4 weeks before basic training. And I said, is she okay? He goes, I'm going to go home and take care of her.
Is a girlfriend?
Mm-hmm. Basically, he meant he was leaving.
Got it.
I just got to the academy with my best friend.
Yeah.
I persevered since 4th grade, right?
Yeah.
And I looked at him and I said, you better marry that freaking girl. Like that. I told that story at his wedding about 2 years later because he did.
He didn't want to be there, though, do you think? Really?
No, I think he did.
Okay.
But he was head over heels in love with this girl.
Got it.
And not only did he would have crushed it. He would have been one of those kids they send straight to grad school. He would have been a fighter pilot. He would have flown. I mean, he would have done all these amazing things. He landed on his feet, right? He's an investment banker. Now he works for Deloitte doing some very cool stuff. Like, he's super smart, did a Duke MBA. Like, he's got it going on.
He's good.
Yeah. But,
wow. Good story.
Yeah. So I finally get the appointment. I finally show up to the academy and go through that experience. My senior year, they turn around and they selected me to be the cadet wing commander. So now I'm responsible for the entire cadet wing from a leadership perspective.
And how many cadets are there?
4,417.
Oh my gosh.
It felt, just to get there, felt like Rudy. That's why I love that movie. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. Yeah. Just because I remember him being there in church praying and talking to the priest saying, "Father, have I done enough?" Right?
Right.
And I felt like those words came out of my mouth constantly for 3.5 years. So they select me to be the cadet wing commander, and I go immediately to the cadet chapel. I say a prayer, and then I go immediately to admissions, and I want to talk to Lil, right? And so I walk in, and I want to return the favor. And so I go in there, and I say, "Hey, I'm here to see Lil Anaya." And the lady says, "Oh, son, please sit down. I'll be back in a minute." And she comes back, and there's 3 other ladies with her, and she says, "Lil passed away 6 months ago." Yeah. And it was just one of those just special moments. And I said, well, I just wanted to tell her that, she fought for me. She got me an appointment to the prep school, and she never gave up on me. And now they're asking me to lead the whole cadet wing.
Wow.
It was a very special experience. Very special experience.
So what's that like as the leader? I mean, what are the responsibilities like? 4,000.
Yeah.
4,417.
In some respects, I haven't had a leadership position like that since. But it's a lot of goal setting. It's a lot of motivating and trying to inspire. And by the way, it's one thing to motivate people who are subordinate to you and supposed to work underneath you or work on your team like that, right? It's another thing to try to motivate your peers, right? When you're standing up and you're addressing the cadet wing at lunch and there's 4,400 cadets and you stutter on a word and 1,500 of them go, and they're like making fun of you. Like it teaches you humility real fast.
So I was going to say, let's somewhat relate this to when we started. We talked about your class at UAH, and they're going to do this thing with the pandas, and they need 5 vice presidents modeling after the pandas, right, to build this thing. So help me understand, like, one of the first questions is, all right, so who are my subordinates?
Yep.
And then what's their span of control?
Yeah.
Right. What's my span of control? Is there 4 or 5 or 6 people reporting to me?
Yeah.
Then what's their span of control? Right. I mean, how big is that organizational structure?
So I had a wing staff. It was probably around 10 seniors and probably 8 or 9 juniors.
Okay.
And that was the cadet wing staff. And then I had 4 group commanders, which were all seniors, classmates of mine. There were 4 groups. Each one of them had about 1,100 cadets in each group, and they were responsible for those 1,100 cadets. And so it was very, very much like an Air Force structure from that perspective. One of the most amazing experiences we had that really has defined my Air Force career is we were at West Point on 9/11.
Oh, wow.
We were at a leadership conference there because that was my senior year. So I literally wrote an article that got published in the Gazette, which is the Colorado Springs Gazette, which is the local newspaper, about a week before that, talking about how I wanted to open up the terrazzo, which is the cadet walking area to and from the dorms and classrooms. I wanted to open it up to the public. Well, after 9/11, we went complete opposite, right? They built a complete fence around the academy. The public can't get anywhere near the cadets. They're very well protected. But it was ironic that we put that there. But it was an amazing experience to be there with my 4 group commanders, my 4 cadet group commanders, and go through that. Just trying to even get back to Colorado Springs, it took us like an extra 3 days. But,
oh my goodness!
But it was we knew that it was going to define our career. The response that we had from a military perspective, that was going to be on our shoulders. We absorbed that. We understood it. And about 95% of the cadet wing immediately understood. I now understand why I'm doing what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
There's that 5% that was like, wait a second. I showed up at a time of peace. I didn't sign up for this.
I think Clay told me he was at Fort Drum when that happened, wasn't he?
He may have been. No, but he would have been a freshman. He was at the academy too.
Oh, that's right.
He would have been a freshman when I was there.
Right.
We would have been there at West Point at the same time.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah.
So tell me about your career in the Air Force. What assignments did you have? Where did you live?
Yeah, so I started in LA Air Force Base. I was an acquisitions officer and was super excited to go out there. I lived with 3 other cadets. We lived in Redondo Beach, probably about 3 or 4 blocks away from the beach.
Oh, wow.
Kind of ridiculous, a lot different from living in the mountains up in Colorado Springs. But I did that for a year. And then something happened that inspired me and made me realize that I wasn't in the right place. And one of my high school friends, both of them were there. But one of my high school friends was killed in the Bali bombings.
Oh, wow.
In Bali. She was one of 4 Americans that was killed in the Bali bombings. Her name was Carrie Kasner. And I was very close with her sister, Casey, but I knew Carrie really well. The Kasner family was phenomenal. Her dad was like a franchisee of Snap-on tools. They were very well off. And I just thought the world of the family, was always impressed by them, and was very close with Casey, and learned that they were both in a study abroad. And they had gone to Bali. Casey went home that night, or to the apartment or hotel or wherever they were staying, and Carrie stayed. And when that happened, I realized that I didn't want to sit in an acquisition role at the time. It wasn't the right fit for me, and I wanted to get into the flying side as quickly as I could.
Gotcha.
So they moved me. They gave me a flying slot and allowed me to transition to San Antonio. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, Troy. I was a little bit disappointed because they said, you can go be a navigator. You had a chance at the academy to go fly and be a pilot. You didn't take it, but we've got navigator slots. We'll let you go be a nav. So I was, and that's kind of like being the goose, right? I'm Goose. I'm not Maverick. Yeah, right. So they send me to San Antonio. Everything works out for a reason, right? First weekend there, I'm at church and the singles ward there, and I see Melissa walking through the Relief Society doors, right? And it's like the heavens part, right? And I'm like, that girl's beautiful. And, the rest was history.
She's thinking that guy's handsome.
I'd like to think so. I think she'll tell you, that guy's a creep. Why is he looking at me? So, and then a week later, I saw her at a Pat Green concert. So that's kind of our thing. He's a Texas country singer-songwriter. And it was a concert. It only had maybe like 500 people at it because there was a hurricane actually that blew through. And San Antonio was getting the remnants of that. And so it kind of ruined his big debut for one of his CDs. But so graduate nav school, go to Little Rock for 6 months of C-130 qualification training. Then we turned around, came home for a couple months, waiting to get into Albuquerque to go through the Air Force Special Operations 130 training. My assignment was going to be to fly rescue 130s.
Okay.
Which is an awesome community. I'm big fans of what they do in the rescue side. And so going to Albuquerque for almost 6 months to get the spec ops quals of how to do helicopter air refueling, which is really cool, right? So you got the drogues and you're doing that mid-air refueling, and the navigator plays an incredible role in that crew complement, which is really cool. So I was excited to do that. Did that for 3 years, got a deployment to Africa, deployed to Djibouti through a Thanksgiving and Christmas, got to experience that. That was very unique, very different. It was also the time that The Office came out. Like that's when it first came out.
Oh, really?
So we'd like land, and there were a couple things I remember. Like we'd land and run to the tent so we could watch the new Office episode, and then we'd talk about it on the next flight or whatever. We always flew at night, and then Napoleon Dynamite came out. Right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
The whole crew had Vote for Pedro shirts, right? So we'd flight suits down to here, Vote for Pedro, hanging out, and we were just goofy.
Can I tell you a quick story?
Yeah.
Have you been to Preston, Idaho?
I haven't. Is that where it was filmed?
Yeah.
Yes.
So my son goes to school at BYU, Idaho.
Nice.
Which is, I think it's about an hour and a half north of Preston. And so when I took him out there in high school, we went on a snowboard trip, and then our flight wasn't until like midnight back in Salt Lake, and we did like an orientation type thing. So we had like 12 hours to kill.
Yeah.
So we head out from Rexburg, and we're driving, and I say, hey, see where Napoleon Dynamite was filmed. I think it was in Preston, and I can't remember. And so we pull up Preston, like, oh, it's actually on the way, kind of.
Perfect.
And I said, look it up, because we've heard of this map. And he finds out there's this scavenger hunt type map.
That's awesome.
So we pull into Preston, and we're just trying to find this map. So we go to a post office. And they're like, oh, we used to carry the map. We don't anymore. I think the Family Dollar does now.
Nice.
So we go to Family Dollar, ask a couple clerks. Finally, it's like, oh, we used to, but now you need to go to, the newspaper, whatever. So we go to the newspaper.
You're on the scavenger hunt.
Oh,
now.
yeah. We're like, we had nothing but time to kill.
Yeah.
So we go to the newspaper place, and they're like, "Oh, you know what? It's at the video store." So then we finally go to the video store. Now this was 2017.
Okay, so it's been a while.
It's been
kind of wearing off.
Like they actually had DVDs.
Oh, I got you.
And like
Blockbuster
VHS.
kind of. Yeah,
And
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I thought we went digital here, right? But not
in Preston.
Not in Preston. And so people would come in like, "Hey, did Mrs. Jones, did Mrs. Doubtfire get returned yet?"
Oh my goodness.
And she's like, "No, Billy hasn't returned that yet." So they talk about a small business where everybody in town does business there, and the lady knows who's like renting what.
Wow.
So in the back of the store, they have like this Napoleon Dynamite shrine.
Nice.
And so the whole deal was, they're like, okay, they had all these memorabilia and things. So you could get the map if you paid $5. And if you paid $5, then basically they would give you a Vote for Pedro t-shirt.
Beautiful.
So we get the t-shirts, we get the map, and then
From Preston.
Yeah, we kind of set out. So we saw Napoleon's house.
That's awesome.
Which was interesting.
Yep.
Based on kind of what
Was Kip there?
Yeah, that was interesting. We saw Napoleon's house. We went to Pedro's house, which is more in town, so I think it gets a lot of traffic. And the people are good sports because they keep the Vote for Pedro in the window.
No, do they really?
Of the home.
Love it.
We went to the school where they had the tetherball scene, and we did a few other things. We went to the farm where they did the 4-H thing.
Do the chickens have large talons? I remember. That's a valid question.
Oh man, there's so many. It was just so fun that we sometimes the best vacations or the best outings are when you have no agenda. Yeah. And we're just like, hey, let's just go do this and see what happens.
That's awesome.
And it was a great experience.
Good bonding experience.
Yeah. And then, we drove back to Salt Lake and took off and went home. But it was a fun afternoon.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Sorry to derail that.
No, I love it, man. It sounds like a bucket list item.
So you were over there, Djibouti.
Yeah, so did the Djibouti thing. It was a phenomenal experience. Got to visit Entebbe and we went over to Yemen. That was phenomenal.
Wow.
Landed over there. Just some unbelievable experiences. While I was over there, and then just flying rescue and supporting the Marines that were out there. In the mission that we had, it was everything that I had hoped for. Obviously, a challenge being away from Thanksgiving and being away from Christmas with the family, and Melissa was 6 months pregnant. Like, she had Tyler in January when I got back.
That was your first?
That was my second.
Your second child.
Yeah.
Okay.
So first child was like, hey, Robbie was like, hey, who is this guy and where has he been and why does he want to hold me?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, we had Tyler almost 3 weeks after I got back.
Okay.
So that was kind of how we timed everything. Robbie was the same way. I was going to Albuquerque, and finishing up in Albuquerque, and I think 2 weeks later, I get back home, and 2 weeks later we had Robbie. Okay. He's my only Texan, by the way. He was born in San Antonio. Tyler was born in Tucson. My two girls were born in Fredericksburg, Virginia.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's quite a spread.
Yeah, kind of all over the map.
Now, what happened? Why were you in Tucson?
So I was in Tucson because I was stationed at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, flying search and rescue 130s out there.
Okay.
Yeah, 79th Rescue Squadron. So a lot of great memories out there.
Man, I've been to Tucson in August. That is hot.
So that's why they put all those shades over the playgrounds. And yeah, it's a dry heat, right? You hear that.
And then when it rains, it floods.
Because it never rains, right? I mean, you see that just very rarely, but you're right. Yeah, it just doesn't absorb into the desert.
And they dig ditches around the neighborhood so that the water can just go somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? Rather than flood the whole town.
I got to be honest with you, though. We loved our time in Tucson.
Did you?
So we lived about 30 miles south in a big master plan community called Rancho Cerrita. And they had literally like a resort style pool with the big water bucket that spills out. So my days were hanging out with the family in the pool and then going in to fly night lines.
Gotcha.
It was an amazing experience. We loved it. And Melissa would come up and eat dinner with me at the squadron, hang out with the guys. Like it was a special time in our life. And we loved the neighborhood. The neighborhood was really good too.
So I'm wearing a Foul Wow design t-shirt.
It's awesome.
Redstone Arsenal, Strange Noises. It's after this Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Right?
Looks good.
So let's fast forward to your involvement. Talk about this. It's unique, right? The position you had with the Bureau.
Sure.
And kind of getting that phone call or email or whatever it was on saying, hey, Rob, we got this idea with the FBI coming to to Huntsville.
Yeah, an amazing experience, right? So I joined the Bureau in 2010. I did my MBA at the University of Texas while I was working for Raytheon, and then they came calling. I wanted to take that MBA and do some consulting. I wanted to look at, McKinsey or one of those big consulting firms and see what I could do in that realm. But everybody was like, hey, you're going to get paid a lot of money, but you're also probably going to lose your wife and your kids. Like, just give you a heads up on that. And that didn't sound appealing at all. But then I hear and I see that the FBI is recruiting, and I was sold hook, line, and sinker when I went down to Austin because I did this executive MBA program, and they would fly the professors up to Dallas, and we'd meet in a hotel, and it was a big pomp and circumstance. It was a really nice program.
Hold on, pause real quick.
Yeah.
How long were you in the Air Force?
I was in the Air Force active duty for 6 years.
Okay.
Yep.
And then you get out.
And then I get out.
Okay.
And I got out wholesale initially. I got out wholesale. Actually, you know what I did? I got out wholesale, and then I joined as an academy liaison officer.
Okay.
So the same guy that told me it's time to pursue other,
Now you're that guy.
I'm that guy. I did it for a year. So I'm doing that while I'm working for Raytheon, while I'm getting an MBA at the University of Texas.
Okay.
And we end up taking the dive. I'm sold on this program. I'm excited. The program for the FBI, it's called the Special Advisor Program. And it was a program founded by a Harvard Business School grad back in 2004. Mm-hmm. He does an internship at the Bureau, does some amazing things in the finance division. And the CFO takes him to meet Director Mueller and says, hey, look, like, you guys ought to consider some sort of program where we could bring MBAs on to help the FBI.
Sure.
As an internal consulting program, but also a leadership development piece. And Director Mueller looks at the guy and he's like, well, put your money where your mouth is. Think about a program that could do something like that and get back to us. And so this guy proposes the Special Advisor Program. And I was a recipient and benefactor of and this guy's name is Dave Schlendorf, by the way. He's the godfather of the program. He's no longer with the FBI, but he founded the program. And he went off and got a couple of Harvard Business School grads and brought them back. And they all started this program together. And so it's internal consulting, working directly for one of the top 50 executives in the FBI. And that sold me when I heard about that and what that could mean and the opportunities that I was going to get. The mission was incredible. It was going to be consulting. The only downside was I didn't know anything about DC or the National Capital Region.
Yeah.
But then they said, hey, we do this tuition assistance to help pay off your student loan repayments. And my wife's like, we're going. Yeah. So we headed up to DC sight unseen and lived in Stafford, Virginia.
Wow.
And had an amazing experience. So I go through that program. I'm literally in the program for 1 year, and then I transition. I started at training division, which was in Quantico, and then I transitioned into a unit chief role running some logistics components for the FBI. And so I'm a GS-15, brand new to the agency, working, trying to solve challenges, be efficient with the budget that we've been given, things of that
Now, were you
nature.
going up to Hoover?
I was going up to Hoover now, right? So now I'm a slugger.
Yeah.
So I'm going to the slug line at 4:30 in the morning.
Explain slugs to those who most people aren't going to know what that means.
Yeah, it's organized hitchhiking.
Yeah.
Organized hitchhiking is probably the best way to describe it. You pull up into a lot. There's a line of cars. They need 2 people. They need 3 people total, but they want to typically pick up 2 so they can drive in the HOV lane and drive 65, 70 miles an hour versus the 35 or 40 miles an hour you drive in the other lanes.
Yeah. So for people, like, if you added about 12 times the amount of traffic on I-565, you would feel what it's like for Rob to commute from I-95 south up to like DC. It's not pretty.
I used to have hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, it all fell out going through that.
It's a major, 95 goes from Florida to Maine. Yeah. And it's a major artery, right? You hit New York, you got
New York,
DC,
Philly, Baltimore. Everybody's heading south on the weekends, and you define your life by the traffic on 95.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's how I got to DC, and then they randomly drop you off, right? So you don't know these people, and you're sitting in the back of their car, and you trust them to drive and be safe.
You just slide them some money.
No, there's no money that changes hands. Yeah, and there's rules, right? You don't talk unless talked to. Maybe the driver just wants to veg out and just get up to DC or whatever, right?
That's true.
Every now and again you get a chatty Cathy, right? Like, and you're like, oh boy, I just want to work. Like, you're on your phone, you want to do some things. It's 5:30 in the morning, you're trying to get a head start.
Yeah, because unlike Uber, this person's going to work as well.
That's right.
They're taking you so they can take the HOV.
Yeah, they need a slug or 2.
Slug or 2.
Yeah,
Got it.
So they get you up, and then they drop you off somewhere randomly in DC, and then you got to either metro or walk.
Right.
To your place of your place of work. So yeah. So typically, I had maybe 4 different modes of transportation to get to work each day. Wow. And 4 different modes to get back out of work, right?
It's a grind.
It does, right? And there were times where you just didn't even see daylight, because you're working in the Hoover, so you're underground, and and then when you come out, it's dark, and when you showed up, it was dark, and so you just forget what your neighborhood looks like. So,
right. Okay.
So I go through that experience. I move into the SES ranks. One cool thing I had an opportunity to do was I had an opportunity to support the assistant deputy director, who's the number 3. The associate deputy director, who's the number 3 in the FBI. And I did that for about 6 months in an acting capacity. And it was phenomenal because you got to see how the 7th floor interacted, right? So Director Comey was the director at the time. You had the deputy director there, and you're supporting the associate deputy director, and they're working new challenges. He's brand new as the director. It was just a phenomenal experience to get to do that, and I always cherish that time to just be able to see behind the curtain, right, and see that. So then I had always said though that special assistant type role had a shelf life, and so then I asked to go back to Quantico. So I did Quantico for another year. And I was running the entire facilities logistical support for Quantico for the 3,500 people that work down there. So then the SES opportunity comes, and it was a phenomenal opportunity. And I moved into the SES ranks to support and lead what we call the field operations support section. And I would do anything for anyone in that group. Like, they were phenomenal. And our job was to provide facilities and logistical support to the field offices. So about 400 covert facilities and about 400 overt facilities that are out there.
Right.
And we would provide that support from headquarters. And so I was on the road all the time. Probably 3 out of the 4 weeks, I was visiting special agents in charge of various field offices, learning about their requirements, making sure that we were meeting their needs. And inevitably there's an active shooter or there's a major case. And so you need space, to grow, to task force comes in and wants to solve that case. There's no shortage of opportunities to excel in that type of environment. And it was incredible. And I loved it. And I gave everything I had to it.
So you traveling all over the country?
Yeah. But the challenge was, right, I got young kids at home.
Yeah.
Right. And so that starts to grind. So then I get the call, right? And this is 2017. And I get a call from the associate deputy director and the CFO at the time. And they said, we're about to get big in Huntsville, Alabama, and we'd like you to go down there and stand everything up. We had some Advon team down there, and good on them. They were down here starting to move things and getting the beachhead set right and prepped. But we want to put a senior executive on the ground that has responsibility for helping to stand this up. And they gave me really kind of 3 priorities. They said, first off, you need to make sure that Team Redstone knows we're going to be a value add member of the team. Right. So NASA, the Army, Missile Defense Agency, Space and Missile Defense Command, you go down there, get on that board, and you make friends, and you make sure that they know the FBI is here to add value. Number 2 priority, make sure that the community knows that we're going to be a value add member of the community. Right. Our people are good people, and they're going to add value to the North Alabama region. Make sure that happens. And number 3, make sure Shelby knows we love him. Right? Like we got to make sure that Senator Shelby knows how much we appreciate his support, because we were looking across the country and using that Amazon model of an HQ2 and trying to figure out where that would look best. And we settled. Yeah. And all this is going on before I even really got involved in some of that. Right. But so again, I told you I had to reconcile the whole Texas and Alabama national championship game. I told them no, actually. I told them no. And they're like, well, you're senior executive. We're going to tell you, where you kind of need to go. And I said, okay, I got it. And so now it was going to be a difficult conversation with Melissa, because she was an Army brat and she had moved all over the country. And here we were 7 years strong in Stafford, Virginia. And she had tremendous friends, tremendous relationships, and she had planted roots. In fact, she just put $24,000 worth of hardwood floors in our house.
Wow. Yeah.
And now the FBI is asking us to pack up and move.
But you, on the other hand, are traveling everywhere, not seeing your kids as much.
Yeah.
In a very different stage of life.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was a very difficult conversation. And she dug her high heels in 700 miles coming down here. And if you ask her today, she'll be like, yeah, I didn't want to come. Didn't want to be here. Right. And first couple of years, she was just kind of like, man,
was some of it the stigma of Alabama versus?
No, I really think it was just the strong relationships that she had with some very close people in church and friends like that, and so that was a big challenge. Okay. That was a big challenge. Now, at the same time, and I didn't mention this, her sister and my brother-in-law moved to Stafford, Virginia, and he got a job with the FBI.
Oh, wow.
So they're in Virginia, right? And so now she's got family. And so here's the FBI asking us to make this move.
Yeah.
And I want to foot stomp the ask, right? Because it was an ask, but it wasn't, right? It was one of those where like,
You're an SES man.
bottom line,
You got it. Yeah.
you're the guy. We want you to go down there and do that.
Yeah.
So we came down. That's how we ended up out here.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, okay. So you come down, you have those three main
Priorities.
you must do's.
Yep.
You know, your three main priorities.
Yep.
And you get to work.
Yeah.
Now, just to tie together the episode with Sarah James, her husband, as people learned in that episode, passed away, and Luke was, help me understand that relationship then a little bit more.
Luke was the first contractor that I hired when I came down here. And so if people who have listened heard Sarah, she mentioned that her husband had passed away here about a year ago, a little over a year ago. But in some respects, Luke and I were very close. And Luke, I trusted him tremendously. He was the perfect person to come down here and be one of my right-hand guys. And the reason was he had done this exact same thing for NGA.
Okay.
He had worked the appropriation side. He knew, like, he would literally tell me day by day. He's like, today this is going to happen, and then it would happen.
Is that when they built the campus east?
That was,
was
yep.
it before
No, not east. This was the NGA Springfield.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
when they built that.
Okay.
Yeah, so he was involved in that. Supported the director, I think is what she was at the time, the director of NGA, and so he understood the political side of it. He understood the day-to-day construction side. He knew what was going to happen on a daily basis, and he would tell me like a prophet, and then it would happen, right? And he was such a tremendous sounding board. I mean, I give him all the credit in the world. We had a ton of them, right? We had a ton of talented people here, and so it was trying to rally all that talent together and help everybody see the value of what we were creating, and trying to get everybody to work together as a team, right? Because inevitably there's different priorities for different folks, right? So, but Luke was a blessing to have down here.
Now, I don't know what group of people were they excited? Were they like the Huntsville area, Redstone Arsenal? Were they excited about the FBI?
Let me tell you.
Or did you have to do some selling?
No, absolutely not. No. So we had a guy that was already on the ground. He was already putting trailers together, getting us a beachhead, right? And so we had already built a relationship and a bridge with the Garrison Command. And then, and what was really cool was the senior commander is the 3-star at AMC. So it's not the 4-star, but the 3-star that's responsible as the senior commander for Redstone Arsenal. And Ed Daly was his name.
Yeah.
And Ed, he's now the 4-star over
Right.
AMC, by the way. Ed was a huge proponent. We would talk all the time. He would say, what talking points can I share publicly? What message do you want me to carry? And here I am, right? I'm a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force in the reserves. And I'm like, I get this access to a 3-star who's the deputy over Army Materiel Command, but he cares enough to recognize that Redstone is not an Army base.
Yeah.
It's a federal center of excellence.
Right.
And that was his soundbite. And so he was a tremendous advocate. The community was a tremendous advocate. The chamber,
Gotcha.
all the local populace was just phenomenal from a support standpoint. That's what they do here, right? You watch, they're going to do the same thing for Space Command.
Yeah.
They're going to do the same thing. It's going to be this magical moment. I'd love to help where I can, right? Because, we weren't perfect. We made some mistakes moving down. We did some really cool things too as we made that transition.
Yeah.
But we've got a playbook, that we can help share. I can help share. Just from
I think we
my
should do a
perspective.
parade down Rideout Road.
Feels like we
parade
do a
would be
parade
sweet.
every night or every day when we're riding out a Rideout Road. It's very slow and it moves. But yeah, so no, the community was phenomenal. I give Ed Daly a ton of credit. I give our friends over at NASA, right? So it was Todd May was in that seat for most of the time.
Okay.
And then and he was a big advocate, and his people just opened up their doors. Like, they were changing processes for us. Like, they were saying, hey, we want you to come over and use our cafeteria. We've taken badge access and moved it back so you can actually get into our cafeteria if your people want an option to eat on base. Like, they were making decisions like that. That's Team Redstone.
Yeah.
Like, that's just one of 50 examples I could share with you where Team Redstone rallied around a new member.
Now, did Ed Daly become the 4-star?
He did.
And now he's actually transitioning out, right? Is
So
that
he
right?
will eventually. We text like little kids. So his
Because his kids play baseball.
University of Texas All-American baseball.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
So he's the second baseman at the University of Texas. And so, in fact, Ed just sent me a text. He's probably going to get furious if he hears this, but he just sent me a text, and he just got to throw out the opening pitch at a Yankees game.
Oh, really?
And he's like, I was so nervous. And I told him, I said, hey, look, as an Air Force member, I would have given you all kinds of crap if you'd have short hopped that thing. But he threw a great shot. I mean, it was like
they just clinched their 20th.
I know.
Pennant, basically, right?
Evil empire. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. But no, we
That is
had
so
all the
cool.
support. Yeah. It was phenomenal. Just to see the support and to feel it. It was palpable.
Now, here's what's going to happen. His son's going to get drafted by the Angels,
Probably.
and he'll end up here.
That would be awesome.
Wouldn't that
Wouldn't that
be
be
so
great?
cool?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be great. That'd be great.
And then, Levon Soto, by the way, is doing awesome at the Angels.
Oh yeah.
He's
killing it.
He's hitting like 370.
Yeah, he's killing it. I saw that.
I was worried about him because when Aguilar and Whitefield went up, it didn't go well.
Yeah.
And it's tough adjustment. And then they're back. That guy, so Soto goes up there and hits. I think he had like 3 hits in his first few games, and he kind of went on a little bit of a over streak, and then he got it back.
We were so excited about the Trash Pandas coming here. Baseball. My dad, right? Like this. We went and got season tickets. We share them with 4 other people that we go to church with and 4 other families, but we're at the Trash Pandas all the time. I went to both playoff games. Broke my heart.
I did too.
Yeah, broke my heart.
Were you in your section 13?
Yeah, so section 13, we got a table. We got one of the last tables they had
that's
available.
right.
Yeah, so
I
we
was
got a
looking
table
for
there.
you.
Yeah. Just look for the big bald red thing.
I sat in the Dr. Joe sent out it was like the FBI Citizens Academy
Oh,
alumni.
yeah.
I sat in section 4.
Okay, so you were all the way around the other side.
And Thursday night.
Yeah.
And they lose. And you know what? I think of every game I went to this year, I think I went about 15 games. Now they won 49 home games.
Yeah.
Of the 15 I went to, they won.
Oh, I think it's the same for us.
And then we went to a game, one of the last regular season games they lose. And then they lose game 2. I'm like, this isn't good. Like, I'm coming back for game 3, and then they lose that too.
I give them all the credit in the world. I think, they could have absolutely shut down. Ralph Nelson was phenomenal in making sure, and you wouldn't have known Ralph because he left before they even threw the first pitch.
Yeah.
But he rallied the community. He rallied the Trash Pandas. And while every other minor league baseball team was letting their people go during COVID because they didn't play that one season, he held on to all these kids that he had brought. I say kids. He held on to all these professional minor league baseball talented administrative people. I think he carried like 18 or 19 of them, and everybody else was letting their entire staff go except for the general manager. And he told us, we went to a season ticket thing. He said, I brought this talent to North Alabama. I can't let it go. So buy another t-shirt. They're selling millions of merchandise and stuff. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
How long did you do that before you left and I guess retired or?
Yeah. So it's just separated, right? So, I did that until 2020. And so they came back actually and they said, hey, we're going to start working towards a new headquarters project, right? So we want you to come up to DC and lead that effort.
Okay.
And lead the National Capital Region section from a facilities and logistical support standpoint. It was an honor, but now we're talking about packing up and moving again. And so I went up there for 6 months, kind of coming back and forth. I had one foot out the door. I really, candidly, if I'm honest, like I had no intention of staying. I just wanted to find the right landing spot, And to be honest with you, I was thrilled. There was a day of mourning because I had spent a decade in the FBI, and it was such a phenomenal experience. Like I bleed Air Force blue, but I also bleed a little bit darker FBI blue.
Do you?
Yeah, I really do. I'm a big fan of them, and I'm a big fan of their mission. And I think that they've got some of the most talented people, that have a mission that has been slammed into the middle of political lines and everything. And I'm so proud of them when they just toe the line and just continue to be non-political and just do their job, right? So I was in mourning a little bit, but then I realized very quickly there's so many things that I couldn't do as a member of the FBI that I can now do. And I'm not talking about, drugs. Like I'm talking about like there's so many things like I couldn't do, like being involved in the community, leading boards. Some of those things were just really difficult to get approved in the FBI. but now you're out here and now you're working. And I think I'd been out for maybe 6 months, and then Bill Marks, who's a former garrison commander, came and grabbed lunch with me, and he brought John Allen. And that's when Bill Marks, who was also the former chair of Launch 2035, said, it's time for your community assignment. And that led us into Launch 2035.
All right, so Launch 2035.
Yeah.
Let's transition to talk about that.
Yeah.
So first of all, I
Yeah.
love, this is kind of a graphic I've been yearning for as
Yep.
I have gained more familiarity over economic development and just all the cool stuff that's been going on in Huntsville, right? That's more than just roads and building buildings.
Sure,
It's
sure.
building a community,
Oh,
strong
totally.
community in a region, not just Huntsville, not just Madison, not just Decatur, a region.
Yep.
I love this graphic.
Yeah.
This is North Alabama.
It is.
These are 10 counties.
Yep.
And again, Singing River Trail is going to go from Bridgeport, which is up in Jackson County, all the way to Lauderdale County,
That's
up
right.
to the Shoals.
That's right. You
and
got it.
200 miles plus.
220.
And John Kovach and I brought up the input map.
Yeah.
So I was like, selfishly, like, is it possible to connect to the Bradford Creek Greenway? Because that's
I
right
heard
across the
that.
street.
Yeah, you were politicking. That was
Yeah,
good.
and he's like,
Yeah.
well, that's why we have the input map. So I'm hoping that all those greenways will somehow, there's going to be funding and interest in connecting those. So I love the graphic. Now, I want to go to, if you can, talk about, you're the chair, and I'm going to bring up the org chart,
Yeah.
which is here.
Yeah. So
So if you can talk to this.
yeah, so we're gonna we're gonna redo the org chart, just make it look a lot nicer, right? But it symbolically tells you exactly how we're organized and where our focus points are. And so I'll run you through the org chart, and this is really important for folks who want to understand more about Launch 2035. First off, let me just tell you, Launch 2035 is a regional partnership focused on 3 key pillars. One is workforce development, one is entrepreneurship, and the other is land use and now infrastructure. So land use and infrastructure combined as a pillar. And those are 3 areas that we believe, and consultants have told us this, and we've asked, very smart people, maybe way smarter than I.
Right.
Those are 3 areas that this region can collaborate on and move the needle.
Now,
right?
these people are smarter than you. They just did better on their SATs.
That's right. Guarantee you that. There's
You're
no doubt in my mind.
You're a smart guy, too.
So I'll start with the left-hand side. So you've got the regional county chairs. Absolutely critical. Now, I will tell you, Launch 2035, when it was started, and you heard John Allen talk about it a little bit. You've heard John Kovach's components of Launch 2035, John Joseph. I haven't heard the interview yet. But when it started, it was really just focused on 3 counties, right? So it was Madison, Morgan, and Limestone. And it was kind of like that was what we considered the Metroplex or the regional approach, right? When I started looking into this and they asked me to come in and be the chair, right?
And what year was that you were brought in?
That was last year, 2021.
Okay, wow. So it went from 3 to pretty quickly.
Yeah, I'll walk you through, right?
Okay.
So they asked me to come in the summer of 2021, and start that. And so what I realized was we kept using the term regional and we kept using the term broad approach, or there was another term we used. I can't recall what it was. The bottom line was we were really neither. Now it's left to the eye of the beholder, the definer of the definition of regional. I get that, right? But there is so much goodness 2 and 3 counties to the left of Madison, and 2 and 3 counties to the right of Madison.
Yep.
And I would even argue there's goodness north of that border of Alabama into the state of Tennessee.
Absolutely.
And I learned that, I will tell you right now, you go back to General Daly. So 2 people had a tremendous influence on me when I first showed up here, because all I talked about, Troy, was I said, the FBI is so proud to come to Huntsville. We're so proud to be a part of Huntsville. We're so excited to share in the Huntsville story. Joe Rich, who is a behind-the-scenes guy, phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal, right? He's done a number of things in his life, everything from standing up the hockey team at UAH to being on the selection committee for Nick Saban in the University of Alabama to go find the coach when they did the coach search.
Oh, my goodness.
He deserves a bonus for that. I get it. So I people of high influence politically and just statewide and really nationally check in with him regularly and get his guidance and instruction. President Biden just announced an appointment for him to serve on the board of TVA.
Oh, wow.
He's done that before. Now
Okay.
he's back on it, right? He also leads and is heavily involved in the Redstone Regional Alliance, which is basically the BRAC committee for North Alabama that plays offense and defense when there starts to be discussions about a BRAC. And so he promotes North Alabama and gets people to put their missions down here at Redstone Arsenal, and he also defends North Alabama and backs them off from the idea of bringing on or taking away components of Redstone Arsenal. So
go ahead and define BRAC for anyone who's not familiar
so that's
with
the base
term.
realignment and closure. So periodically they'll look at the bases, how they're aligned, and they'll make decisions to move missions that are at bases, and they'll make a decision to move them somewhere else in the country. Very political.
Yeah.
Very political.
Absolutely.
So we've got a great team, and Joe Rich does that. Bottom line is, Joe pulled me aside. He said, "Son, we're so glad you're here. I need you to stop using the term Huntsville, though. It's a little bigger than that." And I was confused, right? I was like, "But we're in Huntsville, Mr. Rich." And he's like, "Oh, I get it. But I hope you understand, and you'll see eventually, it's about the Tennessee Valley. And there's something special here in the Tennessee Valley."
Wow.
And I absorbed that, right? Mm-hmm. About 3 weeks later, I get to meet Ed Daly. And Ed pulls me aside and he says, "Rob, you're going to get to make some decisions that are going to be very influential for the FBI. I would encourage you to always consider how it impacts the counties to the left and right of Madison."
That's your second witness.
Absolutely. Right. Now I've got two witnesses. I go, okay, I probably need to be a believer. Right. And so as I've learned, that's why I'm so excited about Launch 2035, right? Because there is nobody in that space that is trying to bring the region together like Launch 2035 is. And we're a regional partnership. So going back to the org chart, you look at the regional county co-chair, the regional county chairs, and what you'll see is Limestone, Morgan, and Madison County, and they have two very prominent business leaders lined up. We just brought Jackson County in. The first time we've gone outside the triad of Morgan, Madison, and Limestone. We just brought, and Jackson County, their county commissioner, the mayor of Scottsboro, they got together and they said, here are two absolute studs from a business community standpoint that can be tremendous advisors and representatives of Jackson County. We want them to represent us. And so they put Hoyt Harbin, who's made a tremendous job from a business. I bought a truck from him, Harbin Automotives.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then Dust Rogers, who I'm looking forward to him writing a book. But he's out putting broadband in some of the far reaches of northeastern Alabama, and killing it, right? And
From his Farmers Telecom Co-op.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. So thrilled to have those folks on the team now, right? And so there's a future county. We're about to get Lauderdale on this map, right?
Sweet.
And the intent is between now and the next year, in the summertime, we'll have another what we call a regional collaboration initiative where we invite all of the elected officials to hear what's going on in the region from a workforce development standpoint, an entrepreneur standpoint, and a land use and infrastructure standpoint. We told them we're going to get all 10 counties that are touched right now by the Singing River Trail. Technically, there's 8 counties, but we're going after that first 10. But we told them we're going to get all the counties that the Singing River Trail, which is our baby, it fell under Launch 2035, and John Kovach is like the one employee that's actually employed by Launch 2035. We know eventually we're going to spin him off, right? The baby bird's going to leave the nest. But right now, he's still a part of Launch 2035. And so we know that he has figuratively, literally, and spiritually run a trail, a vein, right? And has literally connected all of North Alabama with this trail. And so we're leveraging that as the catalyst for bringing on all these additional counties as in a quorum, if you will. Mm-hmm. So we've got the county co-chairs. They provide and represent their counties. They provide great insight at our quarterly meetings, and they understand what we're doing. To the right, we've got very strategic advisors, liaisons, support folks, right? And that runs everything from, you had Sarah James with TARCOG on there. You had NARCOG, which is another one of the COGs. And you learned about that with Sarah talking through it. But Robbie Cantrell, we just brought him on board. And so we're super excited to have him as a part of this advisory program as they look at what we're doing in the middle here in a minute. I'll tell you that. We've got a federal liaison, a good friend of mine, Bill Colson, who was a former senior executive in the federal government. Now he's a president of a company, AI Signal. We've got the Bill Marks, former chair. He's now representing NASA and their interest in Launch 2035. We're now bringing in a cohort or a conglomerate of the schools, some of the big schools in North Alabama, right? So we just went out to UNA and we ask them to provide a representative to sit on our board and advise us from a school perspective. We'll go to UAH, we'll go to A&M, we'll go to Drake, we'll go to Athens.
State,
Yep,
yeah.
you got it, right, in Calhoun. And we're going to get 5 or 6 of those folks to sit on our board and represent the educational part that impacts infrastructure and land use, entrepreneurship, and workforce.
Yeah.
So now we go to the center of the board, most important piece, right? And buttressed to your left and right are your co-chairs from your counties and your strategic advisors, but in the middle,
Just
is
as
our
a
3
note
pillars.
too, for those, my Our Town logo is covering up the Limestone County, which is the regional county chairs, and then my my picture-in-picture where Rob is, you can see him on the screen. That's covering up basically Tarcock, which is Michelle Jordan and Sarah James.
Yeah, no, appreciate you highlighting that.
Yeah.
So in the middle, we've got our infrastructure and land use co-chairs, our entrepreneurship co-chairs, and our workforce co-chairs. We have put absolute rock stars in each one of these positions. So we've got Joe Donato, my best brother from Ignite. He's got a PhD in national security, an absolute strategic thinker. I would put his national security chops against anybody in North Alabama. And then I tell people like,
And beyond.
yes, hands down and beyond. We've got Nancy Robertson. She was the former executive director of Tarcog. She's retired now, and she's in the perfect position to help us out with that. And we've got Joe Campbell there from Huntsville Hospital as well. And one of the major initiatives out of the land use and infrastructure team is the Singing River Trail. You move over to the entrepreneurship co-chairs, right? You had John Joseph, who you talked to yesterday. You've got Tony Eberhardt from Booz Allen, and we've got Larry Lewis from Project XYZ. Who is helping a lot with what some of the things that we're doing to try to branch into the western part of North Alabama. But they put together this phenomenal program called the Launch Tank, right?
Yeah.
And they brought literal entrepreneurs from 8 different counties and brought them in what I felt was kind of like an America's Got Talent meets Shark Tank.
Right.
Like it was unbelievable. Like there was so much tension, good, positive, exciting tension as these folks gave their pitches, like legitimate, solid, strong pitches of entrepreneurs thinking about ways that they could make life better in North Alabama. And then we've got the workforce co-chairs. And I will tell you right now, we've got the absolute horses. Like these are the horses of North Alabama when it comes to workforce development. They've got all the right connections. They've got all the right, the pizzazz themselves as individuals, but more importantly, they're team players. And so Stephanie McCulloch from North Alabama Works, and you got Lindsay Ferguson from the Huntsville-Madison County Chamber. They're literally both working workforce development on a daily basis. In fact, they're currently today, they have over, I believe, 12,000 8th graders at the Von Braun Center.
Really?
Doing
that's right.
Yeah, World of Works. I almost didn't want to be anywhere near it because I know what I was like in 8th grade, right? So I was like, you guys are amazing. But they're doing some amazing things over there, and we support them 100%.
Speaking of 8th graders, there was a teacher at the Cyber Summit was parading around about 21 8th graders in her class at the summit, and you can tell she was just,
no kidding.
She was just drained.
Wow, I bet.
Because they're excited. They're seeing it's like Halloween.
Yeah.
At a professional, everyone's giving out free, frisbees.
Yep.
And, cups.
They probably walked away with
pins,
bags of that stuff.
And you could just tell to shepherd 21 kids.
She
they had a great time, but she was worn out.
Yeah. Oh, I can't even imagine. Put 12,000 of them in the Von Braun. Yeah.
Well, I got to tell you, like you said, Joe Donato, John Joseph IV, that episode's out. Sarah James. I mean, these are some quality people.
So
some smart people, man. We are in good hands.
And so what is our goal, right? Like, what are we trying to accomplish, right? So Launch 2035, this regional partnership is literally trying to say, we need to collaborate better.
Mm-hmm.
We need to come to the table. We're not project driven. We've got some projects there, right? See the Workforce Summit, the Launch Tank, the Singing River Trail. Like those are some examples of initiatives, but really we're, I don't know if I like this term, but I've heard it used a couple times. We're Switzerland, right? We don't have a dog in the fight other than to make North Alabama as special as it can be.
Right.
And we're looking at 2035 as legitimate, like that's a goal, like that's a destination, and we can't just happenstance show up.
Yeah.
We're actually starting to talk about 2050.
Are you?
Yeah. And so we're, how do you rebrand? We're about to do a major rebranding campaign. But let me tell you, Troy, the way I know this is working, I'll give you a good example. There's an organization called Innovate Alabama. And Innovate Alabama is responsible for observing, speaking about, and driving innovation across the state. Mm-hmm. And they turned around and they reached out to us here about 2 or 3 weeks ago. and they said, hey, we're coming to North Alabama and we're going on a listening tour. We're going north, west, south, and east. Yeah, we're going on a listening tour, and we want to hear about what each part of the region of the state, each one of those directional regions of the state is doing for workforce development and innovation. And we want you to host us. They didn't reach out to a chamber. They didn't reach out to an individual. They reached out to the program, to the launch.
Now, and where are they based out of?
So they're based out of, I believe it's Birmingham.
Okay.
I believe it's Birmingham. Don't quote me on that. But they've got a tremendous following. They've got a tremendous responsibility to help drive innovation. They're very well funded. And they came to us and they said, we want you to,
That's cool.
We want you to be our host, meaning we want you to help us select the people that need to be in this panel. We want you to be there to share why Launch 2035 is important and what it's doing from a workforce standpoint and an innovation standpoint. And so anecdotally, it tells you that people recognize that. You just had Ethan Woodruff, right? And so he comes to us and says, hey guys, like I'm walking all over North Alabama trying to rally up support for this zoo, right? And everyone is asking us, where does Launch 2035 sit on this?
Really?
So we put official declaration together for him that said, we support you 100%.
That's
and
awesome.
We will promote what you're doing, and we will provide supportive capabilities where needed. But we've gone out there and formally put it on paper to say we're behind you 100%. And then we're ready to put our money where our mouth is and help support Ethan as he works to get that zoo going here. It's a regional opportunity, right?
Absolutely.
Nothing could be more lined up for something like Launch 2035 to support.
It's going to be such a huge impact to the economy.
Yeah. Yeah. I 100% agree. 100% agree. And it takes somebody crazy enough to see the vision and willing to put the money down to do it. And
he's got some good briefing slides, and one that I really liked was, I think Huntsville is the 110th largest city in the U.S.
Right.
And if you look at the way the graphic was laid out, like 110 through 135, most of them had zoos.
Really?
Of those cities, or cities across the country.
Wow.
Of similar size.
Yep.
So the question you ask is, well, why don't we have a zoo?
Yeah.
I'm working on it. And it was cool. We also had the graphic of like the zoo in Nashville, like the trail of I-65.
Chattanooga.
Well, Chattanooga.
Yeah,
but
that aquarium's amazing.
Off 65, you have Nashville.
Yeah.
And then you're going to the one coming in North Alabama.
Yep.
And then there's one in Montgomery.
Yep.
And then there's one in Mobile.
Yeah.
Or in Birmingham. Sorry, I skipped over.
There's a big gaping hole.
Yeah, it's natural. It's a natural fit.
Yeah. We're going to get the Buc-ee's in first, right? That's going to happen. My wife's so pumped about that, by the way.
That's a new thing for me.
We're big fans. It's a Texas thing.
Is it?
Yeah, it's a Texas thing. Everything's bigger, right? But no. But I believe in what he's pushing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so we formally went out there and did it. Another just anecdotal thing I'll share with you. And John, I don't believe he shared this when you talked with him, but the folks over at the Orion at the amphitheater, they pulled him aside. And they said music is at the heart of some of the most amazing things that take place in North Alabama. And we recognize that. And we also recognize what you're doing by bringing a regional approach. You're uniting the region through this trail, this Singing River Trail, which we think historically has a lot of goodness with the name, with what it symbolizes.
Yeah.
And we're toying with the idea of naming this the Singing River Amphitheater.
Really?
Now, clearly, that wasn't the right answer, right? It's a Huntsville-based asset, but they said, we want this to be a regional gym. We want this to be a regional gym, and we see what you're doing. And they gave him all the kudos in the world and his team for what they're doing to unite North Alabama where it makes sense to be able to come together like that on a trail. And they basically, in my mind, I wasn't there for the conversation, but John shared it with me. It really kind of just, it validated that he's doing the right thing.
Yeah.
He's doing the right thing.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. They wanted a Singing River Amphitheater. Could you imagine that?
That would be,
yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, obviously it's Singing River.
Yeah.
It's like, it's poetic.
Yeah. Yeah. Orion was the right answer, but the fact that they were impressed.
Yeah.
I think that's a really important distinction.
Well, he and I, we didn't belabor it during the episode, but there's all of these Ragnars and Tough Mudders and Ultras. Like,
Yeah.
when you have 200 it's going to be more than 200 miles. It'll probably end up being 250 or 300 miles of trail.
I think that's right.
Every person who wants to do endurance running or come up with the newest Spartan type thing, now potentially we can be beneficiaries where, on the trail it makes sense, where you just continue to pour in economic development.
I got to brag on John. I love him because he's a Tennessee guy, right? So he's out of water just like me, being a Texas guy.
I was originally from Maryland.
Yeah, I know, but he claims Rocky Top, right? Yeah. Like, yeah, no, let's that's a good point, touche. But he is the right guy for that.
Oh,
job.
yeah.
He is, and what makes him so special, he's a storyteller.
Yeah.
He never asks for money. He tells a story and people want to help.
Yeah.
He tells a story, man, and people want to help.
Yeah.
I give him all the credit in the world.
I told him at the end,
impressed.
I was like, you got to keep the beard because you're a park ranger.
I saw that.
He's a park ranger,
Oh,
right?
hands down. Yeah, it suits him.
So yeah, you don't have to give anything away for 2050, but I just love the fact that you're doers.
Yeah.
And I don't say I want to be a part of it too, right?
Yep.
What is it that Mantech, my company, can do to help, or what is it I can do to help? And
there's going to be opportunities.
Totally excited about that. Versus a lot of times there's a lot of too much talk with organizations and associations and things, right? I just love that it's boots on the ground. People are excited. And the other thing that's so great about Huntsville is that I told John Allen this, that they being the natives of Huntsville or whatever counties are very accepting of the Rob Hamiltons, the Sarah Jameses, the John Kavaches that have, and the Troy Byes that have transplanted here.
Yeah. They really are.
Where there are areas of the country where that would be a little bit more like, nah, man, you're an outsider. You don't understand us, and we don't need your help. Thank you.
Yep. No,
and
that's
a huge testament, and hats off to the community, the Joe Riches or anybody else. It's like, hey, I want to give you some advice, and and welcome, and make it happen.
100% agree. 100% agree.
All right, man. Let's do some quick six.
Yeah, I've seen this so many times now. I'm interested to see where this goes.
I think I've done enough pictures with you.
No,
but
this is like
know what? I got one more picture.
Oh boy, this is like the Budweiser hot seat in ESPN. I don't know if you remember that.
We do have to talk about one more picture.
Oh, there it is.
Let me
look at those guys. Look at Lee Corso. They're just holding him up.
He's
a fighter, baby. He's a fighter.
He's now 87 years old.
Not so fast, my friend. Yes.
So for those this is the college game day crew.
Yeah.
On the left, you've got
Desmond Howard.
Yeah. Then you got Reese Davis.
Yep.
Pat McAfee is new
guy. Yep.
Lee Corso.
Yep. Legend.
Kirk Herbstreit.
Legend.
And
miss Chris Fowler. Miss him when he was on the table.
Fowler's so good.
Yep.
But basically, the premise of that is I think it's somewhat, they go where the hot game's going to be that week.
Always.
Right? They were just at App State.
That was unbelievable.
But and then at night, Kirk will get on a plane after they do this show, whatever campus they're on.
Yeah.
Then he'll go and call the game with Fowler.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. I mean, like supersonic jet, right?
Yeah.
Like hypersonic, just get him wherever he needs to go. And it might be across the country.
And I should have pulled up so Lee Corso's now 87 years old.
It's unbelievable.
And the reason that Pat McAfee is sitting next to him is they're trying to figure out a way to phase Lee out.
They are.
He's just too old.
I say let him put the hat on, right?
Yeah.
Whatever headdress he wants to wear, like that, make that his thing. That's what people expect.
Yeah.
People live and die by whether or not he puts the horns up or throws the Roll Tide hat on, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a big deal.
Yeah, when they go at the end of the show, they do their picks for that particular game.
Yep.
And then he puts on the mascot headdress, right, with whatever his pick is.
So I got to tell you,
please do.
One of the most amazing things that happened. So post 9/11, maybe like a month and a half, Gameday shows up to the Air Force Academy for the Army Air Force game my senior year. And I'm sitting there in a meeting on a Monday. And I'm talking with the 1-stars, the commandant, right? Because I'm the wing commander, cadet wing commander. And so he says, Cadet Hamilton, we've got some visitors coming in over the weekend. We need you to align and select a number of crew members, cadets that can support them. I said, sure, give me some more details, sir. He goes, well, college game day's coming.
You're like, excuse me?
I'm like, holy cow. And I'm like, well, clearly I will be there. And he goes, nope, not you. You're going to be doing other things, but you need to pick your staff to help support this. So I went to all my buddies, and all my buddies were Texas and Arkansas and Louisiana. They're all from those states, right? I said, hey, fellas, I'm going to need you to take one for the team because you're going to need to get up here about 3:30 to do this. And they're like, what did you do? And I said, I volunteered your name to escort College Game Day all day on Saturday. And they were like, you got to be flipping kidding me. And I said, no, I'm dead serious. And so they literally got up at 3:30 in the morning and just literally hung out with, it was Chris Fowler, Lee Corso, and Kirk Herbstreit at the time, and literally hung out with them the entire day.
Wow.
And they broadcast from the terrazzo, right? So it was just cadets with all our stupid, silly signs and you going nuts. I should have sent you the picture. I got on stage with them for a moment because this is a bucket list item for me. Like if this is my dream job, actually.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like I would just love to do something like this. So the Paul Harvey story is, there's two of them actually. So the next week we're playing CSU and it's a Thursday night football game.
Colorado State,
right? And we're in Fort
Collins.
Fort Collins, thank you. And my buddy, so first off, they're just still on cloud nine, right? They said they hung out in the bus and just watched these guys predict every college football game. They're like, oh, he's about to throw an interception. Oh, they're going to miss this field goal. Like
really?
they knew it inside and out. They said It was the most amazing experience. So my buddy, I'm standing next to him at the Colorado State game and his phone rings. It's like second quarter. He goes, oh, okay. Yeah, I'm coming. I'll come. And I'm like, well, who was that? And he's like, that's Kirk Herbstreit. He said he'd love to show me the booth if I wanted to come up and see it. Not making this up. And I'm like, bro, like I gave you that opportunity. Are you not going to take me up to see the booth with Kirk Herbstreit? And he turns around and he said, it's just one guy. Just one guy. So he runs up there, goes and hangs out with Kirk Herbstreit at halftime. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So then fast forward about 8 years later, I told you how the Texas MBA was doing it at a really nice hotel downtown Dallas, right? That's where we were meeting for our school.
Yeah.
The door opens up. I'm waiting to get on the elevator. The door opens up. Boom. Chris Fowler, Kirk Herbstreit, and Lee Corso.
No way.
And I just look at him and go, guys. And Lee goes, what? Like that. And I go, what are you guys doing here? And they're like, oh, we're in town for the Doak Walker Award. It was like the best collegiate quarterback in the country or the best running back in the country or whatever.
I think it's running back.
It's running back. Yeah, they were in town for the Doak Walker Award. And all I could say, not like, hey, 8 years ago you were at the academy, I got to meet you guys. All I could say was, that's awesome. Texas is awesome. Have a fun time. Like I literally wet down my leg, like couldn't understand.
Super fan.
Couldn't talk. Couldn't even talk. And the guy, and Lee Corso reaches out, shakes my hand, and goes, okay, buddy, and steps aside from me. And I turn around and I get on the elevator and they're looking around like this, looking at me like, what a weirdo.
You froze, man.
I totally chillied.
Hey, guys.
Awesome. Texas is awesome. That's all I could say. I went back up to my cohort and I told them what had just happened. And they were like, you're unbelievable.
Yeah.
You're absolutely, it was my one chance, right? Like could have totally made a connection. And I made a connection. All right. So yeah, anyways, Lee Corso thought I was crazy.
I mean, I feel bad. It sucks to see what age does to people. But
he's a legend though.
Yeah.
He's a legend.
McAfee's a special talent.
Yeah. No, really there's no doubt about it. That is a religion in our family, by the way, though. I make my kids first game of the season, and right, they wake up and it's coming to your city, with College Game Day intro, and yeah, it's a thing.
Oh man,
it's a thing.
Yeah.
It'd
be cool to be a groupie just to follow them around the whole.
Wouldn't that be? Yeah. Where are you guys going this week? Okay, we're loading up the RV and we're heading out.
Yeah. Some people probably have time for that.
I think they do.
All right, man, you ready to play?
Yeah, show me what you got.
All right, we're going to play the Quick Six.
Bring it.
Where there are actually going to be about 8 questions, and you don't have to answer quickly. I just call it the Quick Six because it sounds cool.
A little deceptive, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's a little deceptive. I'm sorry, but if you get to know me, I don't really, if you ask me a question, I'm going to always like, let me give you some background.
Sure.
So you understand the answer to your question.
Sure.
And then I don't know. I like to be verbose.
Yeah.
But I don't. So then like 6 questions. Like, oh, what about this one? What about that one? All right. Under what circumstance would you actually attend in person a Texas A&M game?
Oh wow!
Under what circumstance?
That's so loaded. So I would attend a Texas A&M game if I had the chance to catch up with retired Chief of Staff of the Air Force, Mark Welsh,
Okay.
who is the president of their leadership program at Texas A&M now.
Okay.
He is the most phenomenal leader I ever served under. He was the commandant of cadets at the Air Force Academy, and we knew then that he was going to become the Chief of Staff of the Air Force within 8 to 10 years. And like a prophet, he became the Chief of Staff of the Air Force. You can Google him. He's got some of the most emotional speeches. He was also an amazing storyteller, and he could drive his points across through the way he spoke. But Mark Welsh, because he's there, because he had the sons that went to Texas A&M, if I could hang out with him at the game, I would go. Other than that, I'd spit and walk away.
I don't even you wouldn't even watch the game. You'd just be talking to him.
I cannot wait for that rivalry to be renewed. I cannot wait for Texas to get in the SEC, and it'll be on.
Oh, that's going to be awesome. All right. Actually, real quick.
Yeah.
So my youngest boy, you met Dylan
Yeah.
when you came in. His middle name is Major.
Okay.
And I had Major Harris was a quarterback at West Virginia. Mm-hmm. And Major Applewhite was a quarterback in Texas.
Absolutely.
And knew we were having our fourth and final child. It was a boy. And I was like, Wendy, can we please give a strong football quarterback name?
Yep.
I'd love to call him Major.
Yep.
And she wasn't real fond of that, but we settled and compromised on the middle name.
Yeah, good for you guys. Compromise is important.
And he's never played football.
Well, it's all good. Okay. Hey, he's got a strong name, one way or another. He's got a strong
I wanted to tell you that because you're actually a Texas
It's like a boy
guy.
named Sue, right? It makes him tougher. Yeah.
All right, so as I mentioned earlier, the soccer team's coming.
Yeah.
MLS Next.
Yeah.
The Nashville team.
Yep.
If you get to name it, what would you name this? I know soccer's not your thing, but now, whoever comes and says, hey, man, we want your UAH class to name this team.
I remember seeing the list of names. So they let the community name the Trash Pandas.
Yeah,
right?
Very rare.
And there were some other crazy names like the Space Monkeys,
Thunder Sharks.
Yeah, the Thunder Sharks. I didn't get that one. That one was
Ricky's. That's Ricky's choice.
I love it. I'm not bagging it, Ricky. You're the man.
But if you look at the logo,
Tricky Ricky out there. Yeah.
You got to hire a different artist, bro.
Yeah, I didn't see the logo. Yeah, man, I don't know. I would, I'd just be bold. Like I'm just gonna lay it down, right? I'd name them the Huntsville Longhorns.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just drop the mic and walk away. And people would always remember why we named them the Huntsville Longhorns.
All right. This isn't necessarily a question, but I want you to walk us through your personal best sports highlight of your sporting career that you often might think about or tell someone. Any sport.
I don't often tell people this. There's a couple of them. No, but there's a couple that it's like really like, oh my goodness. So we're playing high school football. I'm on the punt return team, and this team we were playing Fort Worth Brewer. That's who we were playing, and this team decides to run a fake punt, and it was good. I mean, right to the up back, and the up back turns around and sticks the ball between his legs and just hunches down. And it was so weird how it happened, but no one saw it. No one saw it, right? The punter's running like he's got the ball.
Yeah.
There's an end around from another guy, but he's coming, but he's late. And I saw it. And I saw that guy just turn around and just stick the ball between his legs with facing away from the defense, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to kill him. So I roll in hot, tackle the guy, shut down the fake punt. And it was a close ball game. I think we ended up winning 17-14.
Ooh.
But I tackled the guy and I said something. I said a very bad word.
Yeah.
About his mother. and I immediately look up and there's a referee there and he just goes whoop and
Unsportsmanlike.
throws the 15-yard penalty. I ran to the sideline so fast and nobody knew where the ball was. Nobody knew what had happened. And they're like, what happened? What happened? And who's the penalty on? What's going on? Like, and they didn't understand it right till they watched film the next day. But the head coach, you saw him, Bob Ledbetter, he's like, what's the penalty on? And the referee comes over and goes, number 8 called that young man a mother. I don't usually talk like that, right? And I'll never forget one of my buddies. His name was Zach Vinson. Oh, love me some Vinny. Vinny goes, I know that guy. He'd never say that. He's Mormon. I'm embarrassed to admit it, but so that was.
So they got to keep the ball. They picked up the first down.
No, it was a post play. It was after the.
Oh, so you got the ball, thank goodness.
Yes, we got the ball.
And
Thank
they
goodness.
assessed it on the.
That's right. That's right. And then they marched us back 15 yards.
You wore number 8 as well.
Yeah,
that was my number.
Yeah. Coach grabbed me. He's spitting in my face, man. Son, you can't be doing that. You're gonna win this. And he's always a motivator, right? You're gonna win this ball
Dude,
game.
you should have played in Virginia. We that was common.
Yeah.
And the refs never called anything. We would step on their throats. We would do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. No, that was that was a good memory.
That was a good lesson.
Yeah, it was a good lesson. It was a good life lesson.
All right. We haven't actually talked about the Outer Banks yet.
Oh man,
I have a map of it.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that because as much as we are proud of the Gulf, the Gulf of Mexico.
Yep.
If people are into the Atlantic, I would highly recommend they go to the Outer Banks.
It's special. It's a very special place for the Hamilton family.
Which beach did you go to specifically?
So we started in oh man, you had to ask. So we've done the far north one.
Corolla.
We did Corolla. Is it Corolla? Is it
Corolla. You can say whatever.
It's where the horses run, right? Like that. Yeah.
The wild ponies.
So we did that one time, which was really cool. We've gone down and saw where the Wright brothers did their thing.
Kitty Hawk.
Yep, down at Kitty Hawk.
Here, I'll
didn't
bring
stay
this
in
up.
Kitty Hawk. No, I appreciate it.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. So Duck, we've done Duck. We've stayed in Kitty Hawk. Those are really, we haven't ventured out too much, right? I guess Corolla is pretty far north, right? It's as far north as you can go.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Duck. Now what's crazy is every time we would go, we'd always go like right the last week of August.
Oh, nice.
And there's always a hurricane.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, so we'd always end up leaving like a day early or something like that.
Yeah, if anyone's never been to the Wright brothers, it's down here in Kitty Hawk. It's where they did their flights.
Being an Air Force guy, that's part of history, right? Like that's a big deal.
The other thing that we did, I actually had a marker. We went all the way down to Salvo.
Rodanthe, yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah.
It was
You are on the Outer Banks.
Yeah, and the other thing is it wouldn't be an issue for people coming from the south, from Alabama, but the best way to get in and the least traffic is over this bridge on the south.
Yeah.
Man, this bridge up here is a nightmare.
Yeah. No, you got to factor in a couple more hours. You know, the thing that we think is unique and different about the Outer Banks versus, and we've been to Gulf Shores and to Orange Beach.
Yeah.
And had a great time. We went down there and saw, my wife and I went, and this was one of the sweatiest concerts I've ever been to. But we went down there and watched Luke Bryan last year. But I remember, the difference is they're big on homes, right?
Yeah.
And down in Orange and Gulf Shores, like you don't see as many homes. It's more condos and high rises, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the Outer Banks is just homes. Like you get a big, nice home and you can split it with a couple families and just make it a really special experience. And no matter where you're at, you're literally 3 minutes from the beach.
So you've done that.
Yeah.
Good, because that's going to be part of my question.
Yeah.
I made that assumption. Like we were never going to be saddled with $10,000 for the week. So you're like, oh, we better get a few families.
Oh, yeah. Well, and when they got 12 or 14 rooms, like you can do that.
Yeah. So here's the question.
Yeah.
Going back to your Outer Banks days with sharing with other families.
Sure.
What are the top 3 things that kind of your family is known for that you contribute to the vacation?
I gotcha. Yeah, no, that's good. Well, so we always went with family, right? So my brother-in-law and my wife's sister, we would go down there with them. I think we twice or once. I can't remember if we did it once or twice. I think we did it twice. So we always want to get the chairs right out on the beach, right? So we do that piece of it. We
set up the pop-up tents.
Yeah, do that kind of stuff. Bring the kiddie play, sand tools and play things for the sand and stuff like that. Our kids are older now. All they want to do is just go run in the water. But yeah, I think those 2 things, and then
meals.
Yeah, we'd split meals, but my wife loves going out to eat. Like she's so easy when it comes to like being happy. It's that sounds really bad, honey. I love you. But she loves to go to a movie and watch and eat popcorn. Like that is her thing. Like and she's happy. She's happy, right? Sitting in a movie and eating popcorn. And I love that about her with that simplicity. But she also loves to go out and eat. She's a foodie, right? And so we go out to eat a lot when we go. We don't make as many meals. We do from time to time, because your family is 6 now, right? You're dropping coin every time you got to go out to eat. But yeah, so we'll typically pick a couple spots and go out to eat. which is always fun.
I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I love
Are
going
ya?
out to beach restaurants.
Trying new things. Yeah. No, it's good.
All right. Let's introspectively now. What's something you know you can improve on?
Oh man.
You're at this point in your career.
Yeah.
You know, you've done a lot of things.
Yep.
But, you know, we should always self-reflect,
Yeah.
self-evaluate. You know, what's kind of one thing that Rob's working on?
Yeah. I mean, so always trying to be a better husband and a better dad, right? Like always. You know, that time away, whether it was in the military or in the FBI, I told you there was a time, man, when I was on the road a lot. And so making up for lost time and doing that, I'm having a blast right now. And I feel like this is an area for improvement for me, but we're at multiple spectrums with our children, right? I've got a senior who's trying to figure out what the next steps in life look like.
Yeah.
And I love talking to him about it. Right. And so I feel like I'm creating a better connection with my family. And to be honest with you, North Alabama has really kind of given me that.
Awesome.
Right. When you're spending all your time commuting back and forth from DC, like you lose those opportunities,
Yep.
you know, to go see. I tell people all the time, like I could have two kids with two different sporting events on either side of town and I'll be able to make both of them in North Alabama. But I couldn't do that in Stafford, you know, because I was going to run into an accident or first off, I couldn't even get home on time, you know, so it never happened. So working my tail end off to be a better husband and a better dad is big. My daughter, my youngest daughter, right? Like I'm having a blast working with her on her homework and just trying to be as helpful as possible. I know a lot of people probably listening and they're like, you weren't doing that before? Like what were you doing? But
I get it.
yeah, you know, you're so busy but now it's like I get excited. So we've got these apps that tell us what our kids' grades are, right? Like you probably got them too, right? And when I see a grade pop up because the teacher put something in and I see it go from a B to an A, like I'm like, oh, I can't wait to get home. We're gonna high fives for everybody. And
Yeah.
you know, I get excited about that kind of stuff.
That's cool.
You know, so I think it's just continuing to find solid work-life balance. You know,
Okay.
that's what I want to continue to work on and continue to develop. And be able to not miss anything.
Yeah, because it can go sideways, either good or bad.
Yep.
Quickly.
Yep. It sure
Right?
can. It sure can. I
I always tell my kids, it's all about balance.
Yep.
Right. And you'll have your happiest days will be those when you look back and say, man, I was just so well balanced.
Yeah.
In everything.
Yeah.
You know, to the extent possible. There are going to be those days
Oh yeah.
where there's, you know, that's not possible.
Yeah.
And that's fine. You get through it. Positive, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah.
But you're going to really have those days where you're like, man, what a great day.
Yeah.
Because it was just so balanced.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. The next one. You go to Taco Bell.
I've been there a time or two.
What are you ordering?
Man, so
Hello, welcome to Taco Bell. May I help you?
Yeah. So can I get the 12-pack taco with the Dorito Crunch logo?
12-pack. Wow. Oh, for the family.
Big family, man.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and the kids are just going, bleh. You know, and Melissa and I are like, we love it, right? Like, you know, that's a Texan in us, I guess. But yeah, so I'm getting the big 12-pack, and then probably having to throw a few more on just to make sure the family can all have their 3 to 4 tacos.
Okay. All right. This next one, I'm going to channel your passion for baseball.
Okay.
And I'm going to a little bit channel Moneyball. That movie.
Oh, great movie.
What's your favorite baseball statistic?
Ooh, man. You know, there's a lot of them out there, and I think that's you know, that you know, when you take stats in college, right? Like that's, you know, you start to I see the world through a sports lens, right? But man, I think years ago I would have said it's the home run, right? I think it's just the batting average. I think it's the average, right? Because again, it goes back to the whole concept of, you know, a 300 hitter goes to the Hall of Fame, right? But he failed 70% of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and I think there's life lessons to be learned from that. And I think there's just a story there, you know, that also tells you, like, sometimes you're going to get a hit and sometimes you're not, but it's all going to kind of average out. Like, as long as you keep going up there and swinging, right? Another life lesson, keep swinging, you know, it's going to average out.
Yeah.
You may get into a funk, a complete dry spell.
But you're right. I mean, that's when they have the scoreboard, you know, Panda Stadium, any stadium, and that's the first thing you look at is a batting average.
Yeah.
To see what are you dealing with.
Yeah.
See a 200 hitter.
Yeah.
He's hitting 112.
Yeah.
But then you can look at the home run. Like, he's hitting 112 and he's got 20 homers. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I see
every
what he's
now and
doing.
then.
Yeah,
Every now and then he's going to connect.
I taught my daughter that at the Trash Panda game this year to look at the batting average.
Yeah.
And now she's in the habit of like, Dad, this guy's hitting 120, he stinks. And I'm like, no, he doesn't stink, but let's hope he gets better.
But I love the whole money ball concept of just on base.
Yeah. Yeah. So
the on base percentage.
That concept, data analytics, right?
Yeah.
Like data analytics and the ability to recognize value, Billy Bean, man.
And last one. This is a fun one.
Yeah.
All right. Let's say it's what big game's coming up this week that you're going to watch?
So
College.
Yeah, so Texas and West Virginia play. I will always, unless I do not subscribe to the Longhorn Network. I guess I'm anti-Texan that way. Like I just admitted that in public. But Texas and West Virginia play. That's huge. But there's a bigger game at play here. Well, this is a slam dunk, dude. Air Force and Navy are going toe to toe. And that is a rivalry that unless you're in that environment and unless you've attended that school, either one of them, you just don't understand how much that game means.
Even more than the Army-Navy game?
So I've actually never been to the Army-Navy.
But still, for Air Force and Navy guys.
By the way, that's usually for second place. I just want to put that out there. But yeah. So there, for those who don't know, there's three teams, right? There's Air Force, Navy, and Army.
Yeah.
And whoever wins the most. Now, if there's a tie and everybody beats one another, right, then they default to who won it the year before and they get it. But when I was there at the academy, we won it all 4 years. And then something happened, right? And then Navy went off and got Coach Ken Tuahomalaloto.
Yeah.
And that guy turns the tide, no Navy pun intended. And all of a sudden, they're winning like year after year for the Commander-in-Chief's trophy. But that's a big rivalry. And you see some magical things.
Is it in Colorado this year?
It is in Colorado this year.
Okay.
Yeah. I was actually hoping that we would get that draw for our reunion, but unfortunately we got Colorado.
By the way, my lights go out after like the 2-hour mark.
Oh, yeah.
My set gets a little dark.
How do I turn it on?
Is it off? No, it's dead. It's battery.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's just after like 2 hours. I just got to get some longer lasting batteries.
They quit. Yeah. So that Air Force Navy game's the one. And Troy, if you haven't been to one, the pomp and circumstance, especially when it plays in Colorado Springs, is unbelievable.
Okay.
So they will stack dang near every airframe in the Air Force inventory, every variant, about 10 miles north of the academy.
Really?
And they will stack them every 5,000 feet, and they will just do orbits. And for an hour leading up to the game, every 5 minutes, here comes two B-2s. Here comes two B-1s. Here comes a 4-ship of F-15s. Here comes a 4-ship of F-35s.
Oh my gosh!
It is. If you didn't want to fly at the Air Force Academy, and then you go and you see that, you are sold at that point in time. You know, the cadets are jumping into the stadium, the Falcons flying around at halftime, and I would argue that our Falcon could beat the War Eagle, right? Like I think if they fought each other in midair, we're quick and nimble and smaller in stature, but we could slice that War Eagle up if we had to. So very impressive. All that pomp and circumstance is really cool. So that's the big game this weekend.
So I want to tell you a story after I ask this question. So my final question is: you're going to sit down and what you're going to eat ice cream?
So I am.
And what's in the ice cream bowl?
I'm a simple chocolate guy, man.
Just chocolate.
Give me some chocolate with some chocolate syrup.
Yeah.
Maybe throw some chocolate, some chocolate chips in there.
Chocolate obsession.
Chocolate obsession.
Dude, you and I are very, very similar.
Yeah. It's simple.
I just had that like 3 nights ago.
Yeah.
I was
good
like,
on
I
you.
got chocolate ice cream. I'm going to put syrup. Do I got any chocolate chips?
That's a big deal for us, by the way. Being native Texans, we make sure that we are always stocked with something from Bluebell.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you asked the right question, and that's something we take very seriously. Very seriously.
I'm going to tell you a quick story. We're living in Virginia, and I go to the dry cleaner.
Yep.
And he's now 17. He was like 9 at the time. Mm-hmm. He's with me. We walk in, and there's these 2 guys. One's older, and I think it's like father-son, and they're kind of talking. They're looking at us, and they're kind of, you can tell they're like, they're debating on asking us a question.
Okay.
So the older guy comes over and he says, "Hey, would you guys like to go see Notre Dame and Navy tonight?
Are you kidding me?
At FedEx Field. There's the other light just went out.
How many games they lose? 45 in a row, wasn't it?
Who's that?
Didn't Navy lose to Notre Dame like 45 times?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Hold on.
I remember when they finally beat them.
I guess my lights are still good. Everything's starting to turn off. So I'm like, look, I don't have a dog in the fight.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking it's cool to go see a game though.
Oh,
especially
heck
if
yeah.
Someone gives you free
Two-story
tickets.
programs?
So then you have to do the whole politely where are the tickets? But I didn't ask the question.
Yeah.
I just decided, what?
That is a little rude.
It is, are they 400 level? Nah, we're not interested.
Yeah.
So I accepted tickets, and he
Okay.
says, "Oh, and I have a parking pass."
Oh.
And I'm like, "Okay."
Okay.
And he goes, "Listen, there's a buffet, so
Wait, what?
it's in a suite."
Oh.
I'm like, "Oh, it's getting better." So we're going to be in the suite, okay? And I've been in suites before, but I'm like, "Okay, well,
Yeah.
this will be cool."
Yeah.
He goes, "Make sure you get there early. The food is fantastic, and I'm just telling you, the gates open at like 5:30. You should get there at 5:30."
I don't understand though.
eating.
Time out. You met this guy. You walked in the store and this guy tells
This is
you
a dry cleaners. So I get these tickets from these guys. And
Okay.
he goes, "Hey, listen, if anybody asks who you are, because this is like company tickets, and people get kind of upset when we just give them to like random people, just tell them you're like my nephew or something."
Okay.
And I'm like, "Okay."
Okay.
So I take my son. I kid you not. We go into FedEx Field, and I didn't realize there actually is like a main entrance.
Yeah.
But I've never entered through the main entrance.
Yeah.
And when you go into that main entrance, you go up right away. It's like VIP, up a elevator, one floor.
Yep.
CBS, where they're broadcasting the game, is right there, and our suite was right next to it.
Holy cow.
And we park in
Right next to the stadium.
spot A1. I kid you not. It's A1. Like, this guy probably had season tickets to the Redskins since they were in the inception of the team.
Troy, that never happens to me, man.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
we got there. We were like the first ones there. So we literally park, and we walk, like the crosswalk is right there, over the crosswalk, into the front doors, up an escalator. It's red carpet and everything, and welcome. And we go in, and then the spread was like, you got to be kidding.
That's unbelievable. So
it was like going to Texas Day Brazil. It was like that kind of like meats and everything. I'm like, what has happened? What is going on?
And you went back to that dry cleaner every week after.
And then the game, like the Navy band was awesome.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember what happened in the game. I didn't care.
Oh,
it
really?
was just the environment. Yeah. I enjoyed the environment, but I like Navy, Notre Dame, whatever. I mean, okay.
2-story program.
Yeah.
So I think that's awesome.
Yeah. And it's interesting to watch a game from that perspective when it's not like you're really pulling for one or the others. I just want a good game, entertain my son, and then stay away from the people.
Yeah.
And, I don't want them asking me who I am. So we tried to play.
I gotcha.
Play it cool.
But
it was sweet.
Man, that reminds me of an experience I had, borderline religious experience. So Air Force played Notre Dame in 2000, and they sent about 400 cadets via airlift to South Bend. And it was absolute chaos, right? So I was one of the 400 cadets that got to go. I'm a big Rudy fan, big Notre Dame fan. So we get on that airplane, me and a couple of my buddies, and they just drop us off. And they've got like families of cadets in the Indiana area that come and pick us up, and then they just drop us off and we had to fend for ourselves in South Bend on a Friday night, right? So crazy story, won't get into it, but the bottom line is we show up the next morning, and the game was like a 2:30 kickoff. So we show up, and we got invited to every tailgate.
Oh, wow.
And I'll never forget the perspective. I'm standing there, and there's, Lee Corso's wife, right? She's like 87 too. And she goes, "Son, you guys got a good football program this year." And I looked at her and I said, "Really, what do you think about it?" She goes, "Well, that wide receiver you got, you don't throw the ball very much, but number 5, that Ryan,
wow."
And then I come to find out they put out an entire scouting report, like a booklet that they put out on campus and in the area so that people can learn about the team. So we go from tailgate to tailgate. We're in uniform. They had like a signing thing where like Mike Golick and one of their quarterbacks, I can't remember his name now, were like signing autographs. We go to the grotto. I mean, I feel like I'm living the Rudy thing. Their band plays like a 45-minute ode to the Air Force concert, like a military concert, like 2 hours before the game.
Yeah.
We watched the football players go to mass. Like,
Wow.
It was unbelievable.
That's so cool.
It was unbelievable. And then we go into overtime and lose the game. It broke my heart, right? We took them to overtime.
Yeah.
We lined up to kick the winning field goal and they blocked it.
Man,
and then
to
we
be in
went
South Bend, though.
It was unbelievable. Touchdown Jesus in the background.
Yeah.
Everything about it. Everything about it. I actually know the Notre Dame fight song by heart. I can actually sing it. One of my best buddies, his name's Nick Schultz. He was my right-hand guy as a Govey in the FBI, and he was a Notre Dame grad. And just a diehard. So, Nick, if you listen to this, man, you inspired me. But, amazing experiences. College football does that to you. Yeah.
Rob Hamilton.
Yeah.
Man, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Likewise, man. I appreciate the opportunity.
I'm not ready to announce it yet, but these long episodes are good for me. I'm conditioning myself for a very special announcement that I'll announce in the next few months.
Oh, you've got me intrigued.
I'll tell you afterwards.
Okay.
But I can't broadcast it yet.
Got it.
But there's always multiple methods to my madness and why I do things. But I really appreciate you setting aside some time. I feel like I probably had 5, and I know 5, 6, 7 people like, you got to have Rob Hamilton on. You got to have Rob Hamilton on.
Because he won't shut up.
No, you have a tremendous reputation.
Yeah,
I appreciate you blazing the trail for me. I didn't realize that we're kind of following the same model here, but
Yep.
I appreciate all you've done to allow someone like me to come through and have some success.
You're on the right path, man. And I'm rooting for you, and we're excited to partner with Mantech, and it's just a pleasure to know you personally.
Yeah,
so
you too.
This is phenomenal. I'm a big fan of what you guys are doing and what you're doing.
All right, my man.
Yeah.
Well, good luck this weekend.
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity. Thanks for my wife for letting me stay out late to do this. This is awesome.
And you got to say, you got to do a hook 'em horns type thing before we sign off.
Let me make sure everybody understands this, right? So we move here. I'm not lying, right? We live on the Arsenal for about a month. My kids are in Huntsville City schools. And they come out one day, and one of them's got Alabama shorts on, and one of them's got Auburn shorts on.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, what are you guys wearing? Like, I was so confused. And my girls were still wearing the hook 'em horns gear, so I loved them for that. I absolutely loved them for that. But, so make sure that you do it the right way, right? I see too much of this. I see too much of this. Like, it's straight up, right? And if you ever want to see how tough the Bevo is, just watch that replay of when he attacked the Georgia Bulldog at that bowl game here about 2 years ago. You'll get a good understanding of how tough the Longhorns really are. So,
all right,
awesome.
Rob.
Thanks.
All right, have a good one.
You too, man.